PNL is a bride with a 2-hour makeup, and the cash flow is the girl when she has woken up in the morning.
Investing, to my mind, is not about wedding the prettiest girl. Investing is about finding the best value for your money. So the prettiest girl might be horribly expensive. Now, the holy grail of investing, Shivank, is if you are able to identify pockets where you will have earning growth and multiple re-rating. And that is where I make insane amount of money. Every business goes through a bad patch. Companies that emerge out of a bad patch stronger are anti-fragile businesses. Companies that just survive the bad patch are fragile businesses. Companies that go down and never get up from a bad patch are dirty businesses. So we are looking for anti-fragile. Give you examples of that. The food and beverage stocks are going to target a market which is going to grow slower than the GDP of India. The clothing stocks are targeting a market which is going to grow slower than the GDP of India. The healthcare stocks are targeting a market which is going to go faster than the GDP of India. But if you look at the valuation multiples, food and beverage is the most expensive, followed by clothing, and the healthcare stocks are relatively cheaper.
Benjamin Graham की खास बात थी. He used to discuss all his current picks in the class. So in the spirit of Benjamin Graham, you don't take the names, I'll take the name. Let's start with healthcare global enterprises.
It is the biggest bet we have today.
आपके दूसरे favorite company के पास चलते हैं. Thyrocare Technologies.
We still went right. Why? Because we bought it at the right price. That is the margin of safety ka entire game, right? If your entry price is good, even if you go wrong in some of your assumptions, you might still end up making money.
Krishna Diagnostics. Why it's a great business?
After Krishna took over the hospitals, the voting percentage from the 20-kilometer radius of that hospitals for my ruling party went up. Krishna is more of a play on that democracy.
मेरे पास 100 रुपए है और मेरे पास 10 आइडियाज हैं. How do you make your mind कि मुझे इस आइडिया पे 20% डालना है, इस आइडिया पे मैं 3% डालूंगा, इस आइडिया पे मैं 10% डालूंगा?
Most important mathematical variable here is the risk-reward ratio. 200% upside, 20% downside, so risk-reward is 10:1. Versus let's say another idea that I have, the risk-reward is 5:1. So the stock which has 10:1 will have a higher weight, and the stock which has 5:1 will have lower weight.
RPG Life Sciences. What was your investment process and the business model?
Sanjeev Goenka Group is the Calcutta-based group. The Harsh Goenka Group is the Bombay-based one. So RPG Life is Bombay.
The one who is very active on Twitter.
The other one who's very active on Twitter. That's right. Harsh Bhaiya. They have KEC, Zensar, CAT, and then they have an RPG Life.
FDC Limited के business model से क्या सीख सकते हैं?
The reason being valuations are dirt cheap. Again, if you look at FDC's brand, so do you know what Electrol is?
Vimta Laboratories Limited.
So Vimta is a
Metropolis Healthcare Limited.
same diagnostic story. Just like, so we have Thyrocare, which is a B2B. We have Krishna, which is B2G. Metropolis is a B2C.
What are other companies that you like but you don't want to invest in now because of valuation and you're rigorously looking for them to have a dip?
Honest. So this drug called Viagra was being developed by Pfizer as a cholesterol controlling product. And this clinical trial, Pfizer came, they gave the drug to the patients, and the next morning the scientists were supposed to check the cholesterol levels, but they didn't because they noticed one common thread across patients, that all of them, and that accident became one of the biggest success stories for Pfizer.
In the recent years, you have changed your way from P&L, balance sheet and ended up at cash flow at the last, and you often say to your analysts that सबसे पहले cash flow देखो.
Yes.
Can we do a small activity?
So let's enter a company name called HCG, our largest holding. So if I look at Healthcare Global, what do you see in the first screen? 10,000 crores market cap.
Yeah.
Stock P of 276 times. And our ROE, ROC of whatever single.
Normal investor इसको देख के घबरा जाएगा शायद.
वो घबरा जाएगा, वो आगे जाएगा ही नहीं.
जाएगा ही.
We will not go anywhere. So if you look at the PE chart of the stock, this is what it looks like, right? So PNL is telling you, boss, horribly expensive stock, don't even come close, goodbye, right? Now let's look at the cash flow of the company.
Hi everyone, I'm your host Shivank and we are part of the 01 Network by Zerodha. Together, we intend to bring you insights from the top thinkers in the field of entrepreneurship, technology and investing.
आपने एक जादू करा है और वो जादू ये है कि last 1 year का रिटर्न I think 41%
हाँ, something.
and 2 years was 39%.
That is correct.
ये जादू सीखना है. और
कोई जादू नहीं.
और ये जादू को
I'll explain. हाँ.
ऐसे सीखेंगे. We'll go from economy, business, industry और फिर बहुत सारी companies के बारे में बात करेंगे.
Done.
How do you see the economy of the world right now? और वो कैसे pan out करेगी 10 साल में? And similar economy of India right now और वो 10 साल में क्या pan करेगी?
चलो ठीक है, तो इससे चालू करते हैं. Economy of the world, right? So economy of the world is past का I would say 40 साल. It has been all about productivity and efficiency, right? So new tech, automation, way to do things better than what you were doing earlier, and therefore a lot of productivity. See, look, so on the one hand, there has been high efficiency, high productivity, which has happened over the last 40-50 years, will probably continue as we make more strides in tech. On the other hand, you have had a lot of money printing. So if you just put your brains to it, the natural state of our global economy should have been deflationary. Why deflationary? Given a money supply, so what is the price of any product? Money supply and the quantum of the product gives you the price of a product. Economics 101.
Demand and supply.
Demand and supply. Now, ideally, given that the money amount should have been constant, because money was supposed to be backed by gold, so it should have been a constant. And then the goods have become cheaper and cheaper to produce because they become more efficient, more productive. Actually, the prices of stuff should have fallen over a last 40-year period. What has happened? It has not actually fallen, it has gone up. In fact, we have gotten so used to inflation, we have started to believe that inflation is a good thing, right? And we call a deflationary phase a scary phase, right? I believe fundamentally it's the other way around.
Okay.
Inflation should be scary because it's not that your demand for goods have grown. It has grown because global population is growing. But the prices of goods have grown much more than the population growth. So it is actually driven by money printing. Now, money printing has happened because we have sort of abandoned the gold standard where we have said that, look, money is not backed by anything.
Yeah.
Money is its own sort of sovereign unit or store of value. But think about it. It represents nothing. It represents a promise. It's an IOU. If you see some of the first notes produced in the world, they said, I owe the holder certain grammage of gold in exchange of this promissory note. So the last 40 years, I think the world has sort of fallen into a debt trap, right? Every economy you hear will have a
Huge debt. Yeah.
huge debt. So because they've all printed and they don't have anything underlying the print. So they've basically gone into a situation where they all can tomorrow go bankrupt. And God knows who owns whom what, right? So it's going to be a very, very scary situation if that happens. But I think global economy last 40, 50 years has been a story of productivity, efficiency, and at the same time, a lot of money printing. Now, what needs to happen given what is happening geopolitically today or globally in the economy today, what can happen? What needs to happen is more austerity. We need to consume less. The countries need to unravel their balance sheet. They need to sort of reduce their debt by collecting more taxes or being less spendthrift, right? Less democratic in the approach of spending money. But that's hard to do because if you do that, then most of the economies are in democracies. They'll fall. The governments will fall. So they won't do that. Then how do you achieve a balance, right, in controlling your debt and maintaining your economy? So I think the world is going to see some changes, and it's difficult to predict what changes they'll go through. But I think you will see consumerism slowing down, if not declining. You will see people becoming more aware of how much they are consuming, why they are consuming. The governments will force you to be more aware, maybe by taxing you more. And that's how your disposable income sort of contracts or shrinks. And given inflation, if your disposable income is, even if it's constant, it doesn't expand. Even if it's constant,
It will lose value.
it will lose value because there is the price of goods will again go up. So what will happen, I think, in the global economies, you're looking at a sustained phase of slower growth, slower consumerism, and maybe more austerity. So you will see each country being more self-dependent than being, globalized. वो जो 1991 में या 1990 में शुरू हुआ था ग्लोबलाइजेशन का, so वो जो 1990 में शुरू हुआ था, your entire globalization drive, efficiency and all that, I think given the current geopolitics that will not sustain, that will sort of reverse a little. And when that reverses, it causes inefficiency. So remember, the benefit of globalization was efficiency. And now that it reverses, there will be inefficiency. So if I could buy something, if India could produce something for 150 rupees and I was able to buy it from China at 100 rupees, I said, what the hell, I don't need to produce, I can buy from China. Now, given what is happening geopolitically, India is saying, if I'm reliant on China, I have a problem with my supply chain.
Right.
Right? I am dependent on a third party, and if the third party decides not to produce it or not to give it to me, then I cannot make that good.
The US Biosecure Act.
The US Biosecure Act in the pharmaceutical space, or you can see China blackmailing US with the rare earth minerals and magnets. And what else, right? China not buying soybeans from US and US farmers protesting. All of this is basically the same equation where you outsource something to someone else because they were more efficient at it. That was the result of globalization. And it was a logical thing to do, but that required mutual trust, mutual respect. I think what happened after Russia-Ukraine is essentially that mutual trust and respect was lost.
Broken, yeah.
Now, because that trust and respect is lost, the efficiency will reverse somewhat. So that efficiency, that margin expansion, or that from a corporate standpoint, a margin expansion, from an economy standpoint, an efficiency level. So that will definitely need to reverse a little, because now I have to come back to producing it at 150 versus buying it from China at 100. And therefore, if I'm producing at 150 and still consuming it, then either the demand needs to fall because the good has become more expensive, or the inflation in the price has to be absorbed by somewhere else. So I think globally and locally, you will see cost of production going up as the globalization somewhat reverses. Obviously can't reverse 100%. And with falling efficiency, you will have inflation, you will have lesser consumerism, lesser volume growth that you're used to having, and hence things which we can afford not to consume, we may not want to consume. If our disposable income, stagnates or contracts, maybe because of higher taxation or maybe because of just higher prices of the goods, then you are looking at a picture in the global economy and the local economy where discretionary consumption, discretionary highlighted, becomes a flattish to declining or slight growth pocket. And discretionary consumption includes a lot of things. It can be real estate, it can be clothing, it can be high-end jewelry, it can be autos, it can be anything. So globally, if you are looking at a situation, and locally, if you're looking at a situation where discretionary consumption may or may not pick up, but even if it does pick up a very small pace, then you are looking at a situation where should investors invest? Then you're looking at a situation where investors should invest in non-discretionary consumption, things which you cannot avoid to consume. Examples: food, healthcare. Examples maybe also education. Right? In India, education is not considered a discretionary consumption.
Yeah.
In many foreign markets, they do consider it discretionary. In India, it's not discretionary. Parents
want to सब जान लगा देते.
हाँ, वो फादर अपने लिए नया कपड़ा नहीं खरीदेगा, but बच्चे के लिए स्कूल का यूनिफॉर्म आएगा.
Yeah.
Right? So that's very, very clear. So I think from an Indian market standpoint, education, healthcare, and maybe even food, are the sectors where consumption is non-discretionary. But again, trends within food has been that of premiumization. Right? Last decade, mein almost whatever increasing spends we have seen on food is not on volume; it's more on premiumization, higher ticket. And again, in an inefficient world, relatively inefficient compared to today, some of these trends might reverse. So the people might actually downtrade from a premium consumption to a semi-premium or a lower end ticket consumption.
Can that happen? Does it happen?
See, that's the whole point. None of us since our birth have seen that.
Yeah.
Because none of us are more than 45, 50 years of age. And if you're not, so if you're not, you have not seen the time where money printing was not a given. 45, 50 years से तो money printing चल ही रहा है ना. All central banks have been doing it. तो हमने ये period देखा ही नहीं है.
और जितना last 2-3 साल में हुआ है उतना तो
उतना तो आपने उसके पहले
कभी नहीं देखा.
Right? So you could not have imagined a world where Russia was attacking Ukraine and it was going on for 3 years, right? You wouldn't have imagined a world where Israel and Hamas were at it for 2 years, right? No, but you are living in that world today. So this is way beyond what we would have imagined 3 years back, right? So I think the biggest challenge today, people like us, you who's keen to learn, and people like us who are managing money for third party, the future might look like something for which we don't have a playbook. We don't have a playbook for a de-dollarized economy. We don't have a playbook for an inefficient production, higher cost, just because I'm not willing to buy from China, or just because China is not willing to sell to me. We don't have that playbook. And if you don't have that playbook, then how do you place your bets? You still need to survive, you still need to grow your capital. Yeah. So how do you play it, right? So then you have to think slightly differently. So one way of thinking differently is, let's say, buy gold, buy silver, because if fiat currency loses all trust, precious metals go up. That's what we have been seeing, let's say, for the past year or two. That's one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is if somebody like me who doesn't understand the pricing of metals or the pricing of precious metals, I'll be happier putting my money in pockets where I don't, or people don't have a choice. Yeah. They will have to consume, right? And there then, no matter what happens globally or what happens locally, consumption will be there. right? So my money is safe if not growing, right? And that is where I feel, food, education, healthcare, these are areas where, a lot of money can be made in the future as well. Think of it the other way around. Okay, so in investing, we always say invert the question. So one question is, what will the economy look like, and hence how can you hedge your bets,
Yeah.
right? Or how can you hedge yourself? The other way around to think is, let's say if nothing were to happen, what we just discussed, if things were just status quo for the next 30, 40 years, can you place a bet which will give you return on both sides? Now, food, education, and healthcare
will work both ways.
both ways.
Now, I have this overarching field where the economy is going.
Right.
So now, to make money, I would look for businesses in your terms, which has pricing power,
Yeah.
which has bargaining power,
Yeah.
which has the ability to not choose between growth and margin expansion. Both things can happen
Yes.
same. What
Yes.
kind of other business qualities
Right.
are we looking for? Then we'll come to the industry and the companies.
Absolutely. So look, if I look at the best, let's talk about an ideal business, right? Utopian business.
Yes.
A utopian business will have non-discretionary volume growth. It will have pricing power. It will have the ability to pass on inflation and cost to the consumer. It will have the ability to grow its margins and top line at the same time. It will not need to sacrifice one for the other. It will have excellent cash flows. And far more important, it will have one of the best managements that you would have ever seen. They would know the trends of the market, the feel of the market, and how to allocate capital in the most efficient manner. So that is the utopian stock that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Right? Now, obviously, you don't get an utopian stock in the market. And even if the utopian stock exists in the market, the pricing is at a point where you can't even dream of owning it, right? So, and you end up making a choice given, these 5, 6, 10 variables. What you do is you end up sort of doing a balancing act, because in our investment philosophy, there is always an overarching valuation framework as well. So investing, to my mind, Shivank, is not about wedding the prettiest girl, right?
Okay.
Investing is about finding the best value for your money, right? So the prettiest girl might be horribly expensive, and hence I will not go for it, because my objective is not to marry a business which seems invincible today. No, my objective is that you have given me 100 rupees, and for 3, 4, 5 years later, I need to return 200 rupees to you, and I need to tell you that, look, I've made money on the capital that you invested with me. The objective is not to identify the best quality business. The objective is to grow the capital that you have given to me. A part of which is to identify good businesses, good, entrepreneurs, and good valuations. Because if I'm not focused on the right valuation, even if I were able to identify the right business, I may not be able to grow the capital because my entry price is wrong. Right? 5 years back, guys who bought HDFC Bank or Asian Paints have not made money.
Yeah.
And these businesses are still great. They're awesome businesses. They're still growing. So why haven't you made money in the last 5 years? Because you just entered at the wrong price, at the wrong valuation. And that matters a lot, right? So just to say that, look, a utopian business will have all these qualities. But generally, businesses that have all these qualities will not be in a zone where we can buy them unless they're completely misunderstood by the market or completely under the radar for whatever reasons, which happens once in a blue moon, right? Hence, you end up buying businesses which may not have all these 5 qualities or 10 qualities, but maybe, moderate in a couple of them and great in a couple of them, that sort of.
One of the industries that you invest in, you're the king of healthcare. Okay. Healthcare के अलावा एक सेकंड के लिए कौन कौन सी अदर इंडस्ट्रीज में आप इन्वेस्ट करते हो जो सेटिस्फाई करती है हमारी ओवरआर्चिंग इकोनॉमी की
व्यू को? सो लुक, आज के रेट में healthcare is obviously one of our largest allocations because non-discretionary तो वही है. The second pocket that we are currently investing in is Quasi-PSU in India, right? PSU, Quasi-PSU. Why? Now, PSUs for the longest time were looked at as social businesses. Now, you can't be social and a business. It's actually
oxymoron.
Oxymoron. But people were thinking that these businesses exist to serve the purposes of the society, and which was the case because these companies never looked at their margins, ROEs, never looked at their market share. They were just about, that I should provide this service to the most needy guy in our country, right? And ideally, that was the mandate that these were given. But of late, what we have observed by numbers, by interacting, is that many of these PSUs are becoming efficient. They have been told that you can't behave in a fashion where nothing matters to you, right? Yes, you still have to reach the last mile, you still have to serve the needy, but there is a proper way of functioning in markets like Mumbai, for instance, which is an affluent market, and you need to show those numbers. You need to have that margin, that ROE, that growth, and I think this is yet to be priced into stocks a lot. Just take example of PSU banks, just as an example. At a bucket level, I'm not naming any certain stock. PSU banks historically used to do 4% return on equity when private banks used to do about 13% return on equity. Today, private banks on an aggregate do 15% return on equity. PSU banks have increased their 4% to 12%. Same goes for loan growth. PSU banks earlier loan growth was negative, sometimes flat, sometimes plus 5%. Private banks used to be in the range of 5% to 15% loan growth. Today, PSU banks are 12-13% loan growth. So very, very close to what private banks do. Same goes for ROE, NPA levels, for instance, asset quality. So your PSU banks used to be 4-5% asset quality, credit cost, and these private banks used to be 1-2%. Now both of them are below 1%, and they're very, very neck to neck to each other. In fact, PSU banks right now are reporting lesser NPAs than private banks. So we feel that there has been a structural change in the way PSU banks have been managed, but the valuation bands of PSU banks were always very inferior to private banks. And I don't think investors have shifted the valuation band yet. So they have not recognized the structural change in the PSU stories. So this may not be linked to our macroeconomic structure of the economy, but this is linked to a fact that structurally something is changing within this ecosystem, right? So, and what I said about the economy, right? So you have to place bets on both sides. You can't have a
Single-minded कि होगा तभी मैं पैसे बनाऊंगा.
तभी मैं पैसे बनाऊंगा. You have to be hedged. So if nothing of this sort were to happen, if the doomsday were not to happen, then banks will do well, because our economy, global economy, is used to leverage so much now that they will use leverage to grow. And if you are now going to use leverage to go, PSU banks have the best reach.
Right.
They are almost everywhere. And they will be able to disburse much more than private banks will be able to do. And they are now efficient. So they are not disbursing with their eyes closed, and they are not fighting 4-5% NPAs. They're much more disciplined. And the problem with PSU banks, if you ask me, historically was the discipline. It was the asset quality that they were running, right? So if that has already improved, what are we waiting for? The street is just waiting for, so there is inertia. So there is this thought amongst the fund managers that PSU bank means 0.6 time to 1.2 time price to book.
वो बैठ गया दिमाग पे.
वो framework है दिमाग का, right? And that has come from 30 years of experience, no doubt. And private bank means 1.5 times to, let's say, 4 times, 5 times price to book. That is again a framework in the head, right? At this point, we are questioning that framework. We are saying, why? If a PSU bank is dispersing as much as the private bank,
क्यों नहीं आप
same NPA levels, similar ROEs, then why are these PSU banks not going to get priced up? And I think that will eventually happen. So that's another bet we have taken, right? On the other side, we have taken bets on, let's say, stocks like NBFCs and MFIs. Now, I'll tell you why NBFC MFIs. Today, a very unpopular story. If you talk about MFIs today, microfinance institutions, I think the world will say, stay away. Yeah, right.
Because of the stories that we have seen.
Because of the stories that you have seen. So you have seen, ILFS, DHFL, you've seen all of that. But understand, again, investing is about the price value proposition. So these NBFCs, MFIs, which let's say 3 years back traded at 2 to 5 times price to book. Today they're available at half times to 1.5 times price to book. So about a 40-50% decline on the valuation multiple. And the reason why they've come off is because obviously the economy is going through a phase where personal taxation has gone up. Leverage, people are now not taking as much leverage because they don't have enough disposable income to service the loans. And hence, there is some asset quality issues as well. But if you look at their bucket, the NBFCs, MFIs historical average NPAs are around 2 to 3%. Right now, they're reporting about 8%, which is the highest in their history. Same goes for their ROE. Their average ROE tends to be between 10 and 12. Last year, they reported -8. So most of them were losses. So it was -8. Now, this to me is signaling a bottom of the asset quality cycle. I may not be exactly at the bottom, but I'm very, very close to
range.
I'm very, very close to the bottom. Now, the holy grail of investing, Shivank, is if you are able to identify pockets where you will have earning growth and multiple rerating, both.
साथ में
चाहिए. See, if I am able to identify stories that are only multiple rating stories because earnings is not growing, but people haven't understood the business. So maybe multiple will go. I'll make some
Little money.
some money. If I'm able to identify stories where multiple is appropriate, but the earning growth will be there, so the multiple staying appropriate, you'll make the earning growth. I'll again make some money. But the holy grail of investing is to identify stories where there'll be earning growth and multiple will go up with it. And that is where I make insane amount of money for my investors. So that is the objective. Whether we happen to do it or not, time will tell. But today we feel MFIs, NBFCs are in that situation where it can't get much worse with them. So we may not be at the bottom, as I said, but we are very, very close to the bottom. And if that is the case, today we are betting on that part of the business as well, where we are saying that, look, let's buy these MFIs, NBFCs, let's keep a watch on their credit rating, their asset quality, their disbursals. But the moment their asset quality sort of starts taking a U-turn, that's when you have earning growth, and the stocks which have fallen to half of their valuation multiples as compared to what they were 2 years back, these multiples will also go up. So I make 100% just on the multiple, and then maybe another 100% on when the earnings basically go back up. And hopefully in 3, 4, 5 years, I make 200% on the stock, which honestly today I can't find in defense. So defense is a classic example where today multiples are where, best case they can be. Right? Yeah. It's purely about earning growth if you're playing defense today. And I really like guys who are playing that. But I'm just saying that for me, that is less attractive because I'm paying 40, 50, 60 times P multiple and hoping the earning grows by 25, 30, 40% to justify that P multiple. And hence I make 10, 12, 15% ROE on my investment. To me, that is a riskier bet. To me, a simpler bet is to buy a NBFC MFI. Yes, there will be time cost, right? So maybe that I invested money today, maybe 6 months, 9 months, I don't make any money. Or maybe even I lose 10, 12% capital. Right?
But if that turns, I'll make a big
If and when that turns, I'll make a lot of money. So it's a question of when also, right? It's not just if. I think, again, if the world goes to doomsday, most of these investments will be lost. But, I can't prepare. I can prepare marginally for that by investing in healthcare and education. I don't have enough stocks and some food stocks, right? But when it comes to if the world doesn't go to that doomsday, then these are the stories that are high beta alpha generators for me. And they will generate that alpha for the fund, which I think many investors will miss out on.
I'll come to the healthcare thing.
Sure.
But the thesis that you have mentioned, without naming a company, can you help us understand how do you now, since you have the framework, how do you go double down and find the right horse to bet on?
So it's a very simple thing we do, right? Actually, we look at the entire bucket.
Okay.
So the numbers that I just gave you are at a bucket level, PSU bucket, NBFC, MFI level bucket. So we've identified the bucket first. Now that you have identified the bucket, you take the individual components of the bucket and you see what is wrong or what is happening wrong with each of the businesses. And then you predict as and when, how will you try to predict? Obviously, no one can know for sure, but you try to predict as to, how these businesses can evolve over the next 5 years. And what we do at InCred here is for every stock, we build a sensitivity analysis. What is a sensitivity analysis? So we make 3 estimates for their earnings. There is a bear case, there is a base case, there is a bull case. So if things go absolutely awry or things do not change, what can the worst earning this stock can report? Similarly, if things improve the way we expect them to improve, what is the base earnings that they can report? And if things improve much better than we expect them to improve, what is the bull earnings that these guys can report? And then we sort of create a 3x3 metric where we say, okay, what is the base multiple, bear multiple, bull multiple. So we multiply the bear earnings with the bear multiple. We multiply the base earnings with the base multiple. And we multiply the bull earnings with the bull multiple. That gives you a range of 9 potential target prices. Bear into bear is 1 target price and bull into bull is 1 target price.
Yeah.
Now, if the bull to bear ratio, the upside downside, is 5:1. So let's say the stock today is 100. The bull into bull shows me the stock can go to 300. That's a 200% upside. And the bear into bear shows me that the stock can go to, let's say, 80. That's a 20% downside. So 200% upside and 20% downside
Asymmetric
is 10:1.
10:1.
Right? So that's going to be a superb bet for us.
Because it's asymmetric.
It's asymmetric.
Yeah.
So if I lose 20. If I gain, 200.
200.
So that's how we basically select individual components within the bucket there. And this is one metric. Obviously, then there are other metrics we look at. We look at the secularity of the growth. We look at the management pedigree. So there is this framework of Nassim Taleb called anti-fragile investing.
Yeah.
So every business goes through a bad patch. Not unusual for a business to go through a bad patch. Companies that emerge out of a bad patch stronger are anti-fragile businesses. Companies that just survive the bad patch are fragile businesses. companies that go down and never get up from a bad patch are anyways dirty businesses. So we are looking for anti-fragile. So we are always looking for businesses that even if they are in a bad patch, what are they doing during that bad patch so that they emerge stronger, they come out stronger. Now, give you examples of that. Let's talk about a certain MFI. I'm not going to name him. So he's obviously going through a bad patch. He's an MFI business. The asset quality has, deteriorated.
At what market cap approximately this is it?
3,500, 4,000 crores.
Okay.
Yeah. So asset quality has deteriorated. Disbursements are low. Growth is low. ROE is suffering. But he is now investing in tech and AI to ensure that his underwriting by human beings is also being cross-checked, that make a checker concept, by AI tools. Right? Now, what he's doing will make no difference to his business today.
Right now.
Because end of the day, the environment is so bad, no matter how well you underwrite, you will still have problems. But when the environment improves, if his underwriting skills dramatically improve because he has used AI or he has used some, frameworks, processes to tighten his underwriting ability, when the market turns, this guy will become far better, far superior
Than his peers.
And then his own past. So when things were good for this guy, let's say he was trading at 2 times price to book because his ROE was, let's say, 12, 13%. Now when things go back to that situation, when he was reporting 12% ROE and hence 2 times price to book, now when the environment improves to that same level, now because his underwriting is even better, his ROE may not be 12, it may be 15, because he's underwritten better than what he has underwritten in the past. And hence his price to book, which was earlier 2, will not remain at 2. If the ROE improves from 12 to 15, his price to book will be 2.5, 3. And that nobody will be able to see at this point. They will see it when those numbers get reported.
But you will be able to say it now because you know what the company is doing in the bad
Exactly.
phase.
So the idea is to probably understand how they are behaving in a bad phase. See, in a good market, in a good phase, every company is anti-fragile. They appear anti-fragile. They appear like superbly run businesses. It is environment and periods like this that you use to evaluate the DNA of companies. When you are going through a rough patch, that is when your real behavior comes out. That is when the real you becomes visible to the world. And at that time, if you are able to invest, keep your head down, focus on what you can do better when things turn around, that's how you become a great business.
This is very interesting. So there's a mark of a man is defined in the bad times, right?
Yes.
It's similar for the company.
Similar.
And the closest example that I can think of is, so we hosted the promoter of Safari, Sudhir Jatia sir.
Yeah.
And he mentioned कि COVID में 10 साल तक कंपनी की मार्केट कैप was nothing.
Yes.
And COVID में he invested in people, किसी को रिटेल नहीं करा.
Correct.
जितने भी रिटेलर्स थे सबके साथ बना के रखा, सबको पैसे दिए. जैसे ही कोविड टर्न अराउंड हुआ,
Yeah.
जितने भी रिटेलर्स थे, जितने भी वेंडर्स थे, जितने भी पार्टनर्स थे, सबने उनको सपोर्ट करा. किसी भी कॉम्पिटिटर को सपोर्ट नहीं करा. जितने भी लोग थे, the mindset ownership increased, and the company ka profit and everything was doubled, and market cap was crazy.
Obviously,
This is very interesting. Before we go into your area of healthcare, what is one thing that you have realized which the world and your peer fund managers haven't? Just like the MFI thought. What are some other interesting insight about life, investing, world economy, or a company or a stock or an industry जो आपको समझ में आ गया है लेकिन दुनिया को अभी समझ में नहीं आया है?
यार देख, ये तो मैं नहीं बोलूंगा कि मेरे को समझ में आ गया, दुनिया को नहीं आया. That will be too arrogant, I think. But yeah, one of the things which I think is slightly going under the radar at this point for most participants in the market is probably the fact that as the Indian GDP grows, so let's give you a data. In 1950, US was $2,500 per capita GDP.
Same as us.
Today.
Right.
Right. In 1950, US was same. In 1950, US used to spend 28% of their GDP on food, 10% of their GDP on clothing, and 3% on healthcare. Today, India, we spend 25% of our GDP on food because we are similar, $2,500. We spend 25% on food. We spend 13% on clothing, and we also spend 3% on healthcare. What happened in US after 1950 to 2020 is that per capita GDP moved from 2,500 to 75, 80,000. Food came down from 28% of GDP consumption to 13. Clothing came down from 10 to 3. And healthcare ballooned from 3 to 18. Now, if we acknowledge that what happened in US is broadly what's going to happen in India, maybe not to the same extent. Maybe healthcare spend in India will never go from 3 to 18 or 16, but it will certainly move from 3 to 7, 8.
That's the assumption then.
Yes, that's the assumption, because that's what we have seen already in the past decade in India. So a decade back, India was spending 2.7% of GDP on healthcare. Today, we are at 3.5%. So it is already happening. Yeah, it is already happening. I'm just saying it will happen at a faster pace as our GDP grows more. So if you think about it, the food and beverage stocks are going to target a market which is going to grow slower than the GDP of India. The clothing stocks are targeting a market which is going to grow slower than the GDP of India. The healthcare stocks are targeting a market which is going to go faster than the GDP of India. But if you look at the valuation multiples, food and beverage is the most expensive. Stocks today in India are food and beverage.
Yes.
Barring the AI tech platforms, those you can leave out. But otherwise, it is food and beverage, followed by clothing, the trends of the world, right? Which is again going to grow slower than India, at least the target market would. And the healthcare stocks are relatively cheaper, but they are targeting a market which is going to grow faster. So a company's growth is a function of the target market, at what level is the target market growing, and then their own market share in the target market, right? So if the target market is not growing, I can grow my market share and still grow. But if the target market is growing and I'm able to expand my market share, my growth is bombastic, right? So in a market which is stagnant, if I improve my market share, I might grow at 10%. But in a market which is growing at 12%, if I improve my market share, my top line growth is 15 to 18%. Double, right? So you're always trying to identify areas where the target market as well as market share has the potential to grow. Now, to my mind, the food and beverage target market will grow, but it will grow much slower than the GDP of India. The clothing market will also grow, but much slower than the GDP of India. The healthcare market will grow, but it will grow much faster than the GDP of India, because incrementally, as we get richer, there is a limit to how much we can spend on food and how much we can spend on clothing or real estate. Then incrementally, many of our expenses go to healthcare. You want to live longer, healthier, you want to live better. And that is where healthcare steps in, right? So, end of the day, we are all flesh and blood, right? So, we need to take care of it. So, I think that is one thing which the street probably has not understood yet.
Perfect. Healthcare पे आ गए. अब the best way. So, have you read Benjamin Graham?
Yes.
So, Benjamin Graham की खास बात थी. He used to discuss all his current picks in the class. So, in the spirit of Benjamin Graham, you don't take the names, I'll take the names. Sure. And I want to know the 4 things behind this.
Yeah.
मैं जो company का नाम दे रहा हूँ.
Sure.
You help me understand how did you hear about it for the first time?
Okay.
Second, how does it fits into your overarching theme of economy?
Sure.
How does it fit into your theme of good, great and ugly business?
Done.
Of course, it's fitting in the good and great thing.
Sure.
How? So, ये 3 चीज जाननी है.
ठीक है.
Let's start with healthcare global enterprises, which is around the biggest, one of the biggest.
It is the biggest bet we have today. So HCG, Healthcare Global.
First time, how did you hear about it?
So how I heard about it is, so you have a HCG center here in Haji Ali in Mumbai.
Okay.
Close to Worli, opposite Haji Ali, you have a HCG hospital there.
Well, Narayana का कोई स्कूल भी है ना?
हाँ, नारायण उसके पास में HCG.
Okay.
So we were driving one day ऐसे ही, so I just saw the HCG cancer center. So I was just thinking in my head, here it's a good idea to have a cancer center, because cancer patients have very special needs compared to other patients. Whereas multi-specialty hospitals will have cancer wards, but those cancer wards again may not be very well equipped, because the cancer patients have multiple different needs, and unless you have heavily invested in cancer, you will not be able to provide all the things that he needs. So that's when I first heard about HCG. Second time when the stock came to my radar was in 2020, once COVID hit. So HCG IPO'd, I think, sometime in 2018 or 19.
Okay.
I think 18. And then when COVID hit, my first thought was, people were saying, don't step out if you have comorbidities. Right? Now, a cancer patient is severely immunocompromised.
Yes.
Because he's given chemo, he has given steroids, he's given so many drugs.
He does not have the ability to fight with any other thing if it happens.
Exactly. So my initial thought was, कि ये तो boss cancer centers के लिए, this is a death nail, COVID, right? And I started looking at the HCG stock. Now HCG, unfortunately, they had expanded right before COVID. They had IPO'd, they had raised capital, and they had used that capital to open new facilities, right? And in hospitals, what happens is, when you open new facilities, they'll give you losses for 10 months, 12 months, 18 months, depending on how fast you are able to scale up. And then they break even. And then with more patient footfalls, the profit comes. Now, SCG had taken debt, they had raised equity, and they had opened new hospitals.
और कोविड आ गया.
And COVID आ गया. So forget about new hospitals getting footfall, पुराने hospital का footfall भी गया. So पुराने hospital जो profitable थे वो loss making हो गए, and नए hospitals जो anyways loss making होने थे वो loss generate कर रहे थे, and there was leverage on the balance sheet. So I saw the stock price tumbling, if I'm not mistaken, all the way from 320, 330 rupees to something like 75, 80 bucks. And when a stock falls like that, 75, 80%, look, the market is, in my view, slightly trend is friend kind of place, right? Where in Excel sheet, if you just drag everything to the future, it gives you a different picture. So I think the market had decided that this company is going belly up, right? That is what the stock price was telling me, that this company is going belly up. They cannot survive given that COVID mein patient footfall again. Now I asked myself two questions. First question I asked myself was, if SCG goes belly up, right, can India afford that? The answer is no. So India as a geography, we have 0.5 beds per 1,000 population. Global average 2.7. Developed markets like Singapore, South Korea, 12, 13 beds. We are nowhere close to the global average, forget about the developed markets. So I said India cannot afford SCG going bankrupt. Number two, can there be someone who can rescue SCG from the debt trap? Can they infuse capital, pay off their debt, and take a significant stake in the company and then run the business?
Any private equity will do that.
Any private equity, any strategic would have done that. My expectation was it would be a strategic. It could be an Apollo, could be a Manipal, could be a Fortis, could be a Narayan.
Because it has assets on...
It has assets on the books. So you're buying assets.
And private equity, I think one of the biggest themes, somebody told me, कि यार इंडिया में दो ही चीज हम देख रहे हैं. Private equity players was telling, yes, diabetic capital है.
Correct.
जब diabetes और diabetic capital है, दूसरा लोग लेट शादी कर रहे हैं.
Yes.
लेट शादी करेंगे, बच्चों की दिक्कत होगी, IVF बढ़ेगा, डायबिटिक है, डायबिटीज से अलग आंखें खराब होती है, तो प्राइवेट इक्विटी ओनरशिप इन हॉस्पिटल्स इज लाइक
skyrocketing.
Crazy
It is skyrocketing.
in the IVF sector and all across all.
And it will happen more. I'll tell you why it will happen more. Anyways, we'll come to
So
that.
sorry to cut your thought. Please complete both the thoughts.
Yeah, I'll finish that. So when I looked at it, I said, look, India can't afford the chain like SCG going belly up. And SCG has assets. So it's not, yes, it is in a debt trap, but it has assets. So there are people, in my view, who will be willing to pay this off. And then I spoke to certain people in the industry. It's not just single line thinking, right? You speak to a lot of people around you. And I spoke to some patients who have been to SCG. I spoke to certain doctors who are already practicing at SCG or who had practiced at SCG at some point. And I asked them, can the center really close down? And the answer was no, hell no. People will die if that hospital chain goes down. And then I spoke to, let's say, other hospital chains, and I asked them, why aren't you buying this asset? And many of them said, no, looks interesting. We are, thinking about it. We are working on it. Right? So then I got to understand that the asset is generating a lot of interest given the price point at which it is. The asset is generating a lot of interest. And then we thought that the price point is good for us to act.
Okay.
And that's where we bought HCG into our this thing. Now, how does it figure in our economy framework? Non-discretionary consumption.
Yeah.
Cancer, fastest growing disease in India. And in terms of market cap, the market cap at which we entered, there was nothing to lose for us. Other than that, the company could have gone belly up. But, we sort of took that risk. After doing our work, it's not that we gambled. We took our time, we did our work, and we realized that there are many stakeholders who are telling us that this cannot happen. This company cannot go belly up.
Perfect. So now the decision to hold it and to buy it, आपका पहली concentrate है, वो portfolio है. Maximum goes to small cap.
Yeah.
अब उसमें भी मैं stock को 20% तक own कर लूँगा.
Correct.
How did you make that decision?
So the 3x3 matrix, right? Two things. So one, you look at the valuation at which you are able to get it versus what other stocks in similar segments are valuing at. So SCG is a super specialty. They do only cancer. Now think about it for a second. You have a Max Healthcare or a Apollo Hospital which are listed. They are multi-specialties. When they are multi-specialties, what they say is, I am a one-stop shop. Right?
सब कुछ कर दूंगा.
मैं सब कुछ कर दूंगा. आप अगर बीमार हो आप बस आ जाओ. I'll do everything for you. Great. That's a great statement to make. But what happens with them? 70 to 80% of the patient flow of Max and Apollo are treadmill patients. What is a treadmill patient? That patient comes for a day or two or three. Let's say a maternity patient will come for 2 days, 3 days.
ठीक होने के बाद
The kid will be born. The couple is out of the hospital, may not come back ever. right? Or may come back after 10 years for another kid, or after 5 years for another kid, or may not come back. So if Apollo in a given year has treated, let's say, 100 patients, out of this, only 20 patients are probably patients who will come for sure next year as well. 80 patients have come, gotten their arm fixed, gotten the baby born, and they've gone back home and they're not coming back next year. So the next year they have to acquire 90 new patients
Dobara.
to treat 110 patients and 10% volume growth, therefore, right? So that's a treadmill business. You need to keep running so that your 100 becomes 110, 120. HCG, because it's treating cancer patients, these patients, when they have become patients, they will be patients till they're alive.
Yeah.
So HCG has a base which is far higher.
Sticky.
And they just need to keep adding to the base to grow. Their base doesn't evaporate. Their base also evaporates because of deaths, cancer.
Yeah.
Results in lot of
And
deaths.
hopefully सब ठीक भी हो जाते होंगे.
And majority ठीक भी होते हैं, but कुछ cancer patients will die. But then your base doesn't decline by 90% like it does in a case of multi-specialty.
तो लाइक सॉफ्टवेयर बिजनेस एक बार बेच दिया तो मैं क्रॉस सेल कर सकता हूँ, अपसेल कर सकता हूँ, और वो जा भी नहीं सकता कहीं क्योंकि उसका डेटा मेरे पास ही है.
उसका
स्टिकीनेस है.
Stickiness.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग.
So आपका वैल्यूएशन अच्छा था, आपका बिजनेस मॉडल बेटर था. ग्लोबली सुपर स्पेशलिटी ट्रेड एट अ प्रीमियम टू मल्टी स्पेशलिटी. इंडिया में दैट इज नॉट द केस येट.
ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है?
Scale. When they started recording, we said that mutual funds scale is an enemy.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm running a mutual fund scheme with, let's say, 70,000 crores of AUM, and I have to own a hospital, I have two choices. I have, let's say, a hospital XYZ with 150,000 crore market cap, multi-specialty, trading at 50 times EBITDA, right? And I have HCG, 8,000 crores market cap, 25 to 30 times EBITDA, super specialty, and I know this asset is better quality, deserves a higher multiple than this asset. Can I really buy this asset? HCG. No. I have a 70,000 crore AUM. How will I buy a 7,000 crore market cap company? 1% of the AUM to lunga na if I buy the stock.
Yeah.
If I have to buy 1% of my AUM is 700 crores worth of stock. SCG's entire market cap is 7,000. So I have to buy 10% of SCG. Who will give me that? Nobody will. And even if I buy 10%, it's just 1% of my portfolio. Even if the stock doubles, what do I make? 1% return. Whereas this stock, which is 150,000 crores in market cap, I can buy a decent chunk. And then if this stock performs, my portfolio reflects that return.
Something will move.
Something will move in the portfolio, right? So in our market, and this is why alternate assets are growing in our market, because every fund house is sort of compelled to look at this stock and ignore this, which they may or may not acknowledge or may not realize that this asset is actually inferior compared to this asset and still more expensive compared to this asset. But they'll still buy this. The reason is liquidity. The reason is not anything else.
मिलेगा कहाँ से आपको उस
मिलेगा कहाँ से?
आपके दूसरे फेवरेट कंपनी के पास चलते हैं. आधा ही टाइम हुआ है.
Yes.
अभी सारी चीज डिस्कस करेंगे. And tell us everything that you can tell.
Go for it.
Thyrocare Technologies.
Yes.
Very close to my thing because I've hosted Mr.
Velumani.
Velumani sir.
Perfect.
Amazing storyteller.
Amazing storyteller.
ज़्यादा
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
I would agree.
But you've met him, no?
I've met him multiple times.
And one of my friends, who's a very good friend, is also on the board of Thyrocare.
Awesome.
So, Thyrocare mein, again, you own close to 17, 20, 80%. How did you hear about the company for the first time?
Sure.
What was the thesis and why do you like the business?
Right. So the first time I heard about Thyrocare was during their IPO. This is, I think, 2015-16. Their IPO came. Velumani sir was obviously here in our office, and at DSP, I was at DSP at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So DSP Mutual Funds, so they came to our office with the bankers. He told us about his story.
Crazy story sunai hogi.
Crazy story, as Velumani said.
Do you remember anything which he mentioned that time?
Actually, in that meeting, he was very down-toned. And the reason for that is his wife had just passed
Yeah,
away.
I know.
His
Same
wife
time,
had just passed away. So he was actually not in his true sort of self in that meeting, but he still, credit to the great man where it is due, where, he took us through the business model. He took us through what he's trying to achieve. He took us through how the earning growth will look like, what the business model is, and everything else. So we liked the story. We invested. And then, obviously, we made a lot of money in Thyrocare while we were invested since IPO in DSP as well. Then what happened was that during COVID, things changed. So if you know our InCred healthcare portfolio, it was launched in February of 2021, midst of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So when InCred healthcare portfolio was launched midst of COVID, we did not have any Thyrocare. We did not have a single stock. Now, why did we not own it at that time? Because during COVID, all these diagnostic companies were reporting crazy margins and crazy top line growth. Now, why those crazy margins and top line growth? Because they were getting the RT-PCR and the antigen
Things
tests.
done, yeah.
Things done, right? And that was resulting in very high margin, very high top line. Now, I as an outsider, I could see that these numbers are not sustainable. These are COVID driven.
कभी तो ठीक होगा COVID.
हाँ, कभी तो ठीक होगा. Now, in those days, if you had come and asked me, कि Aditya, how long will COVID last? I may not have had an answer for you. But I would have told you anywhere between 5 to 10 years.
100 साल नहीं जाएगा.
हाँ, 100 साल नहीं जाएगा. Because Spanish flu lasted for 10 years, beginning in 1920 to 30, and their medical science was probably not as good. Now that we have that medical science, I was hoping कि 5 से 10 साल के बीच में हो जाएगा COVID, worst to worst. And these diagnostic stocks with the earnings driven by COVID were trading at 60-70 PE multiples, which implied that COVID earnings would last for more than 100 years. क्योंकि 60-70 तो present value है ना. So it has to last for more than 100 years. So I said, this is madness. I'm not going to participate in that madness. So even though we launched the healthcare portfolio in February of 21,
You didn't buy Thyrocare.
we didn't buy any diagnostic stock. We had no diagnostic.
तो अब साफ दिख रहा है कि यार ये तो
हाँ,
upcycle है.
ये तो upcycle में है. And peak margin, peak multiple. That is a sin.
मतलब ही नहीं.
हाँ, that is a sin for us. So we do not pay peak multiples and margins are at the peak. We say that the margins need to normalize. When they normalize, multiples will normalize, and then we evaluate the story again. And that is what we did with the Thyrocare. So we did not touch it. As and when COVID went, the inevitable happened. Your COVID tests were gone. The RT-PCR was gone. Antigen was gone. And your margins started dropping. Your revenue started declining. For the first time ever in the history of Thyrocare, they reported negative revenue growth because RT-PCR tests were gone. But now what business they were doing? They were doing the normal business. The normal blood tests, the health packages, the accident-driven tests, and normal infections and all that. Now that's the main business. That business will last for 100 years if you ask me. And the multiples now had fallen from 60-70 to 20-30. So I said market made error on both sides. One, the business which was not going to last 60-70
और जो
times.
100 साल रहने वाला है वहां पर 20 दे रहे हैं.
So मैंने बोला now is the time to buy. And that's when we started buying Thyrocare. By that time, Velumani sir had sold it to Pharmacy. Siddharth. API. And we said that, look, Pharmacy is a good platform. They'll be able to, turn around the business.
But पैसे नहीं बनाते वो लोग.
हाँ. So, यही है. अभी Pharmacy में invest नहीं कर रहे हैं. हम लोग Thyrocare में invest कर रहे हैं. So, a guy who's running the business is also running a business, which is Pharmacy, where he's not generating cash. That's okay. As a Thyrocare shareholder, my lookout was, can he make money for Thyrocare? And the answer for that came out to be yes. Why? Because Pharmacy had a lot of customers which they had acquired by burning capital, obviously, but they had acquired a lot of customers. Now for Siddharth to sell the tests or for Pharmacy to sell the tests of Thyrocare to those customers was easy, number one. Number two, think about it. One of the largest shareholders in Pharmacy is Manipal Group.
Yeah.
Ranjan
Paisa.
Now, if Ranjan Paisa is one of the largest shareholders in Manipal and Thyrocare is a diagnostic business that does business with the hospital industry,
A lot of
synergy was there. So we said, let's buy it for those reasons. Ironically, Pharmacy business declined after we bought.
Okay.
Because Pharmacy suddenly realized they can't keep burning cash forever.
Yeah.
So they had to increase prices of the tests that they were offering, and hence the volumes took a dip. Because earlier they were not, pricing it appropriately. So volumes were very high. Then they started pricing it appropriately, so volumes took a dip. That Manipal and Thyrocare synergy is still not there. I don't know why it's not there, and I don't know if at all it will be there or when it will be there. But Thyrocare does no business with Manipal Group at this point. And this is about 3 years since they have acquired, I think. But we still went right. Why? Because we bought it at the right price. That is the margin of safety ka entire game, right? So you can have 10 intellectual thoughts, 10 predictions. You will go wrong, right? Because business is just full of variables. But if your entry price is good, even if you go wrong in some of your assumptions, you might still end up making money. That was the thought. Another reason was why Thyrocare stock had been beaten down was because Pharmacy being a cash burning engine, they had bought 71% in Thyrocare, but that pledged the entire 71% to an NBFC to take loan against that shareholding. Now, ideally, if you ask me, many fund managers and many houses will never look at a stock which is pledged. Why don't they look at it? They say that, look, they pledged the stock, they've taken a loan. So let's say 71% of Thyrocare is worth, let's say, 2,000 crores at that time. And the promoter of Pharmacy essentially pledged that 71% stock to an NBFC and took 1,000 crore loan. If you pledge 2,000 crore worth, you get 1,000 crore loan. Now let's say if Thyrocare stock declines another 50%, which means now the value of collateral goes to 1,000 crores versus the loan outstanding at 1,000 crores, the NBFC can actually come and sell the entire stock.
Okay.
To recover its own
Yes.
capital. And when NBFC comes and sells, it doesn't look at price.
Basically,
It just
press the hit
market
button.
level selling karte hain. And that causes huge volatility and huge dips in the stock. Right? So that is why many shareholders who could be potential shareholders were not looking at Thyrocare. We did very small homework. We said that, okay, let's assume that the worst happens. Let's assume that the Thyrocare stock price declines by 50%. So we originally bought Thyrocare around $650, right? So let's say the stock price decline happens. And let's say the stock goes to 325, which implies that the margin call will be triggered. Now at 325, if let's say the NBFC comes and sells the stock, where can the stock go to? What we realized was that out of the 71%, by the time the NBFC sells about 2 to 3%, the stock will go to zero. That is the traded volume of the stock. So now, if I am the NBFC, am I going to be really that stupid to sell the stock? So if that is not a possibility, then that pledge doesn't matter because the NBFC cannot sell. The NBFC just cannot sell. So then we said if the NBFC cannot sell, then it is not a risk. And we can understand, because I've come from the mutual fund industry, I can understand why others won't touch it. So it's not about what you expect, it's also sometimes more important to understand why are others not looking at it.
Both ways, दोनों चीज.
आपको क्यों इंटरेस्टिंग लग रहा है और दूसरे को क्यों इंटरेस्टिंग नहीं लग रहा है? HCG, nobody wanted to take a call on that debt trap. Nobody wanted to take that call that this asset will survive. It's important for India as an ecosystem for that asset to survive. Nobody wanted to take that call. Thyrocare, nobody wanted to take the call that there's a 71% pledge and whether the pledge will come to the market or not. We took that call. We did our math, we did our work, and we said, look, it is not possible to sell 71% in Thyrocare on the market. Because by the time you're done selling 2%, the stock is zero. What do you do with the balance 69%? What is the objective of selling? To recover capital? No.
Yeah. कैसे लोगे आप? I hear you.
You can't recover.
Thanks for taking names and sharing all this thesis. But ये आपने मेरे को बताया दोनों चीज में. Why did you buy?
Yeah.
Why do you still hold? Of course, this is not a recommendation, just for learning purpose. But why do you still hold these two things, which are 20 and 20 approximately percentage of your portfolio?
Done.
What's the future story?
Absolutely. So again, HCG, let's begin with HCG. So they've recently been acquired by KKR as a private equity. So look at the past acquisitions of KKR in India. So they acquired JB Chemicals, what is now named JB Pharma. I think they're sitting on a 37% IRR on that company. When they acquired, that company had margins, I think, of 15-16% EBITDA. Today they are doing about 26-27% EBITDA. And they're sitting on a 37-38% IRR in JB Pharma. Then they acquired Max Healthcare, where when they acquired, the EBITDA margin was 8, today is 30%. It was 8% when they acquired it. And again, they're sitting on some 37-38% ridiculous IRR there as well. So as KKR as a private equity gives us a sense that they understand the healthcare business in India. They understand how to scale up margins. They understand how to
They have the muscle.
run the business, right? So they understand the ecosystem, Indian healthcare ecosystem. That's one reason why we still hold it. Second reason, it's still dramatically cheaper than the larger peers, which are multi-specialty. So that trade, that a super specialty has to be better priced than a multi-specialty, will probably play out till SCG becomes that scale where these houses will be forced to look at SCG as an asset because now there's enough stock available. And मैंने आपको बोला था, this earning growth and multiple.
दोनों साथ में.
यहाँ दोनों साथ में. KKR will drive the earning growth. Multiple will be driven by as and when more scale comes, more and more houses will be able to take the stock.
It can get recognized. Very interesting.
It will get recognized. It has already gotten recognized.
अब तो 750 के करीब है, 700 something.
So अभी I think SCG is, let's say, about 30 times, not even 30, 28 times trailing EBITDA. The other larger hospitals, they're at 55 times trailing EBITDA, 45 times trailing.
Something 60-70 also. Yeah.
There's something at 60-70 also. And by definition, super specialty has to be more expensive than multi-specialty. So that journey is still left. So KKR will drive your double-digit bottom line growth and top line.
KKR ऐसा जादू क्या करता है?
Efficiencies. You just have to understand how to. So I'll tell you what they did in Max, because SCG में क्या करेगा मुझे नहीं मालूम. So I can't talk about that. But I can talk about how they increase Max का 8% margin to 30. That story we know now because that has happened in the past. So when they arrived at Max Healthcare, what they realized was Max had everything in-house. हाउसकीपिंग इन हाउस था, कैंटीन इन हाउस था, फूड वगैरह सब इन हाउस बनता था. So सब चीज़ के लिए they had very a large pool of employees hired to do all of these things for them. And KKR did a very simple study. KKR said, look, if we outsource compared to doing in-house, how does it benefit us or cost us?
Okay. Study कर रहे हैं.
खाली study किया. And that's, I think they hired one of these big four consultants to do it for them. And the consultant came back saying that, look, if you outsource it, you're going to save like 10% on your margins, right? Which is huge.
Yeah.
So KKR said, okay, then why are we keeping these people on our payroll? Now, because it is a private equity, they can take that call because they're very, very, result oriented in the sense that they want to make the organization the most efficient because it aligns with their interest of taking the stock price higher and higher, which is where they can earn a return on their investment, right? An individual entrepreneur or a family run business sometimes doesn't look at it from that lens. They look at these people as their kids, their babies, their hires, their subordinates. And they get emotional about how to run the business.
And someone external
will show a different lens, right? So I think that is what they do very well. They're very unemotional about how to run the business. They say, look, end of the day, it's the Darwinian theory, the survival of the fittest. So if the organization is not fit, I'm not going to survive. And hence I have to be the fittest. And it's a very capitalist way of looking things, but that's how things are being run. And that's why I sort of...
और क्या जादू करते हैं? Tell us 1-2 more stories that you heard what KKR does.
It's not just KKR. I mean,
all private equity, of course.
They all do the same thing. So they have other assets, right? So KKR has an interest in Max Healthcare. They had an interest in JB Pharma. Let's say they would globally have interest in some insurers, right? Now, they will try to drive synergies from between the assets, portfolio of assets. So they will tell a Max Healthcare that, okay, if you have, let's say, for example, if Max Healthcare doesn't have an oncology ward in Nanavati, Mumbai. So they will tell Max Healthcare Nanavati, Mumbai that if you get a cancer patient, send them to SCG. Don't send them to any other cancer hospital.
Are there any other things that they specifically did to Max, which increased from 8 to 35, what you were saying?
So outsourcing was one. Then there is obviously procurement cost rationalization. So what happens is if you run a hospital, a chain of hospitals with, let's say, 10 units, 2 in Mumbai, 2 in Delhi, 2 in Madhya Pradesh, 2 in Bengal. One way to do things is that each of these hospitals individually procure what they need to run, which is your machinery, your consumables, your gloves, whatever. The other way to run it is you have a central procurement team. And the central procurement team procures for everybody in bulk.
They have economies of scale.
There's economies of scale, you negotiate better. So I think in earlier days, Max was doing individual procurement.
Interesting.
Each unit was placing their own orders with their own selected vendors.
तो promoter को दिख नहीं रहा था ये. Very interesting.
ठीक है.
Very interesting.
वो promoter sometimes has focus on different things, right? And it was a very low-hanging fruit for Max to sort of pluck. And you can see how they did it, right? And that is where they bring a lot of professionals. They bring a professional CEO, a professional CFO, a professional head of operations, COO, right? And professionals, obviously, again, they're incentivized the right way. So if you look at private equity, again, KKR or anybody else, one of the best things they do when they acquire these assets, when they bring fresh talent from the industry, the talent obviously has a fixed comp, a bonus, but the talent major compensation is a part of ESOPs.
Yeah.
And that ESOP pool
aligned incentive
aligns the incentive of the private equity and the managers. What happens with these promoters is, and again, not all promoters, I'm just saying. Yeah, in some cases, what happens in some of these promoters is, because they've been running that business for a while now, they've become super rich. They're not running the business for the margin or the valuation that
पूछ में आग थोड़ी कम हो जाती है.
हाँ. So वो थोड़ा relax हो जाते हैं लाइफ में. वो थोड़ा हो जाता है कि यार हम तो we have made it in life, right? We have created a hospital chain with 12 hospitals or 10 hospitals.
चल रहा है.
I have arrived. अब उसके बियॉन्ड अब मुझे आई डोंट नीड टू स्ट्रगल विद कि वो मार्जिन 8 क्यों है, वो 10 क्यों नहीं है, वो 5 क्यों नहीं है ना. व्हाई शुड आई बॉदर? दे दिया किसी को कि यार तुम देख लो. आई एम ओके. सो बेसिकली देयर इज नो कैप्टन एट द शिप.
Interesting. Krishna Diagnostics. How did you hear about it for the first time? Why it's a great business?
Right. So again, Krishna IPO'd during COVID. Not a part of our portfolio. Too expensive. Huge IPO. Because they were reporting all those RT-PCR.
And I really want to understand I want to increase my knowledge about business models,
Sure.
about industry.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it from that way.
I get it. So let's compare Thyrocare and Krishna. That way you'll get a better understanding. So Thyrocare, so there are, in the diagnostic industry in India, there are three type of businesses you can do. There is a B2C, there is a B2B, and then there is a B2G. Okay. Now the B2C is the easiest to understand. That's your Metropolis, Dr. Lal's, right?
Yeah.
Who are selling their tests directly
To consumers directly.
to consumers directly. Even these aggregators are B2C businesses, right? So they're selling someone else's business lab to you.
Yeah.
So these are the easiest ones. B2B is slightly more complicated. That's your Thyrocare, where they do have a B2C presence. Thyrocare does have a app. It does have a website where you can go and place orders directly.
And then the third people also selling their B2C.
Yes, but to you. So there are partners who sell their test to you. Now, who are those partners for Thyrocare? Primarily two kind of partners. One partner is, let's say, a hospital like, let's say, Asian Heart right here. So an Asian Heart may be having patients, and when they run a blood test in-house,
They'll send it to.
so instead of doing that in-house, they'll partner with Thyrocare. So they'll send the sample to Thyrocare. Thyrocare will send the report, and the Asian Heart will obviously charge the patient, let's say, 200 and pay Thyrocare 100.
Yeah.
So that 100 rupees Asian Heart makes for the patient recruitment. And they do that because had they run that test in-house, it would have costed them 150 to do it. And they would have still charged 200. So their margin would have been 50. Now, because they're giving to Thyrocare, the margin is 100. Now, the good question to ask is, why does it cost them 150? And why does Thyrocare
Can do it in
100? So Thyrocare is pricing at 100, which means his cost must be 70.
Yeah.
Yes? So why is that?
Economies of scale.
Yes.
Okay.
So in diagnostics, economies of scale, very generic term. In diagnostics, the largest cost of doing business is that of the machinery. Right? The reagents, or no matter how many times you run the machinery, the
variable
marginal cost is very, very low. Right? The major cost is that of the analyzer, the machinery. Now, if I'm able to engage that machinery 24 hours, my marginal cost is so low that my cost per sample comes very low. But in any hospital, when you have an in-house lab, that lab will always have such less volumes that machinery hence runs very low. Because it's only the captive audience, right? So the machinery runs for very low amount of time. Hence their average cost per test comes out very high. And hence they have to price it even higher than the average cost to arrive at a marginal sort of profit on their lab cost. Which is where Thyrocare's business model perfectly fits in. It is like saying, why are you doing it? Because you are doing only 10 samples. He's doing 10. He's doing 50 samples. I will do 2,000 samples a day.
I'll run my full capacity.
Yeah. I will do 2,000 samples. So why don't you all partner with me? You tell me your cost. Your cost is 100 rupees a sample if you're doing it in-house. I'll sell it to you at 80 rupees a sample. You still save 20 rupees by giving it to me. And it's the same test. So then for you all, you don't need to do it. I'll do it for you. So that's Thyrocare. That's B2B. Now so Thyrocare does B2B and B2C both. B2C mostly online, and B2B, through franchisees, through hospitals, they do it. Now comes a B2G business model, which is where Krishna Diagnostics fits. Now, in Krishna, let's say, what do they do? So Krishna, I think, started in 2011, and they started with something like 2 hospitals in Himachal Pradesh. Now, what do? They basically, so government of India owns roughly 50 to 60% of the healthcare infrastructure in our country. When I say healthcare infrastructure, hospital beds, labs, all that put together.
60%.
50 to 60%.
50 to 60%.
Exact number is not known, but my sort of educated guess is between 50 and 60. Because in rural markets, it's mostly government, there's no private. And in urban, it's mostly private, less government, but average would be 50 to 60. And they get less than 10% of the paying patients, the government.
क्योंकि वो प्राइवेट में जाएगा.
वो प्राइवेट जाता है. जिसके पास पेइंग एबिलिटी वो गवर्नमेंट में जाता ही नहीं है.
Of course.
राइट. अर्बन में तो नहीं जाता है. रूरल में फिर भी बिकॉज ऑफ लैक ऑफ ऑप्शन थोड़ा बहुत जाता है. So it's about less than 10% of the paying patients. Now, what government realized by looking at the statistic was that it is not enough to own the infra, you have to operate it efficiently for the patients to come to you. Now, being a government machinery, it is next to impossible to operate it yourself efficiently. So they started doing these PPP contracts, public-private partnership contracts, where they said, look, my lab, my infra,
You run it.
you operate, you run. You recognize revenue, you give me a fee, or you give me whatever share of that. That is where Krishna stepped in. So 2011, Himachal Pradesh opened that tender. So now, healthcare is a state subject. Most people don't know this. Healthcare is a state subject. So every state will decide it
On its own,
when they want to float such a tender and for how many hospitals. So let's say Himachal Pradesh would have, I don't know, but let's say they would have 100 public hospitals, government hospitals. Of that, the first tender that they floated in 2011 had 2 hospitals and the lab inside the 2 hospitals. So Krishna's job is to operate the lab inside the hospital, right? So
in capex government करती है.
नहीं, केपेक्स कृष्णा करता है. हाँ, केपेक्स कृष्णा करता है. सो गवर्नमेंट गारंटीज वॉल्यूम.
इंटरेस्टिंग.
कृष्णा गारंटीज प्राइस.
मैं बिजनेस दे दूंगा.
हाँ,
अब आप बना लो.
हाँ, करेक्ट. सो गवर्नमेंट आपको बताएगी कि इन दैट हॉस्पिटल हाउ मेनी पेशेंट्स कम एंड हेंस व्हाट इज द डिमांड फॉर XYZ नंबर ऑफ टेस्ट्स, राइट? एंड देन यू गिव मी अ प्राइस knowing that what is the capex that you will need to do to run those tests.
Okay.
ठीक है. गवर्नमेंट ने वॉल्यूम गारंटी देता है खाली मोस्टली. So, and Krishna has to guarantee the price and the capex that they will do for the machinery. So, हिमाचल प्रदेश में 2 हॉस्पिटल में 2 लैब दिया उन्होंने. In I think 2011, Krishna's annual revenue was about 8 crores.
Okay.
From that state of Himachal, 2 hospitals. Cut short to today, in Himachal they have about 17-18 hospitals contributing 70 crores of revenue.
Okay.
And Krishna's total top line this year is going to be around 700-750 crores. So from 8 crores to 750 crores in a matter of 15 years. Now, if you do your work here, when we did that legwork, we went to some of these states where Krishna started with 1 or 2 hospitals and today they are in 10, 12, 15 hospitals. We asked them why first you started with 2 and second, why then you then later increased it as so these contracts are every 3 years, 5-year, 10-year contracts. So when they come up for renewal, you can increase the number of hospitals and volume, etc. So we asked them why you started with 2 and we asked them why have you scaled it up to 10, 15, 20, whatever you scaled it up to over a period of time. So they said we started with 2 because we weren't sure how it would work. We were doing it for the first time. So it was a dipstick approach. So we said what went right in the dipstick for you to sort of scale it up to 2 to 20. The response was that the 2 hospitals that we gave them at the beginning, after Krishna took over the hospitals, the voting percentage from the 20-kilometer radius of that hospitals for my ruling party went up.
The government has incentive to, because it's the direct, मतलब basic, आपने मेरा hospital ठीक कर दिया.
गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल में कौन जाता है? द पुअर. वोटिंग में मैक्सिमम कौन लोग टर्न आउट?
पुअर.
द पुअर. सो इफ द पुअर आर गेटिंग अ प्राइवेट लेवल सर्विस फॉर फ्री एंड दैट टू इन हेल्थ केयर, दे विल वोट.
Yeah.
They will vote.
Very interesting insight.
So for me, and in our democracy, at least my belief is, whatever brings votes will work.
Of course. We have to stay in power.
It has to work.
Yeah.
So for me, Krishna is more of a play on that democracy, where people will give him more and more business because everybody wants votes. Simple. And end of the day, it's benefiting everybody. It's the state which is financing it. It is the center which is financing it. It is a state which is administering it. It is going to the poorest of people. And it is going at a significant discount to what they would get otherwise in private labs.
So are they able to get this into other states also, sir?
Yes. So today Krishna is present in 17-18 states out of India.
And इनका कोई competitor भी है?
Unorganized बहुत सारे हैं. Organized, I don't think they have any significant competition. I mean, see all these Dr. Lal, Metropolis, Thyrocare, they have also bid for these tenders, but they don't win them because the mentality or the mindset required to run a B2G business versus a B2B or a B2C is going to be very different. A B2G is all about frugality. It is about how you stick to the core metrics.
And business में क्योंकि सरकार से आप डील करते हो, पैसा टाइम पे आ जाता है इनको.
हाँ, so that is where the center financing helps.
Oh,
the funds of the state level diagnostics comes from the center NHM, National Health Mission. तो आपने देखा होगा बजट में I think 80-85,000 crores का बजट है NHM का, National Health Mission का. And that fund the center releases to the state, keeps it in escrow, so the state can't use it directly for any other purpose other than this purpose.
It solves that problem.
It solves that problem. हाँ, ये होता है कि भाई ब्यूरोक्रेसी है, तो हमने बिल जमा किए, पैसा 60 days में आना चाहिए था, वो 100 दिन में आ रहा है, 120 दिन में आ रहा है. All those machinery, government machinery you can't.
That we have to deal with it in India.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, and how did you make this decision कि यार मैं इसको 11%, 12% खरीदूंगा?
Same, अपना risk reward. So at the time when we bought Krishna, इन पे एक income tax का rate पड़ा था. And I think their stock price had fallen on the way from 900 to 500 or 450. Because of that income tax rate. Now, why people sold that stock had 2 reasons. Number one, because COVID में list हुआ था stock. Post-COVID, anyways, volume were declining, revenue was declining. So people were anyway selling the stock. And then came the IT raid. So people thought कि यार ये तो B2G business है, इस पे rate पड़ गया, मतलब
हो गया काम.
something was awry and this and that. So they sold off, and the stock completely got depressed from 900 to below 500. And we said, okay, let's do our homework, right? So we again spoke to people, spoke to states, spoke to some of the health ministry as well, and tried to get some feedback on Krishna and whether they are doing some hanky-panky like this, or are they just a normal company working with the government, and working with the government will have its own sort of receivable issues and whatever. And we got a feedback from the industry that everything's fine with them, so there's nothing wrong.
And which analyst got you Krishna for the first time?
Which analyst?
Yeah. How did you hear about it?
No, I was interested in Krishna right from the day they IPO'd.
Very interesting.
But the IPO was very, very expensive during COVID, right? So I never touched it. So that's another thing you will see very common in InCred AMC. 80 to 90% of the IPOs we don't touch because we feel it's too expensive, and the person who knows the most about the business is selling.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't buy. Very rarely you will see us participating in an IPO. Very, very rarely. And those are exceptional cases. But otherwise, we generally stay away. Let the stock do its own thing. Let the business do its own thing for the next 3-4 quarters. Keep the stock on our radar. If you like the business, keep it on our radar. And then reevaluate after 3-4 quarters. And that's where Krishna basically got her.
50% portfolio हो गया लगभग. Jubilant Pharmova. First time. How did you hear about that? What can we learn about from the business model of this company?
Yes, so Jubilant Pharmova is a very old acquaintance for me. In 2009 was when I was at Nomura. Nomura did a investment banking, I think a QIP raise
For them.
for Jubilant Life Sciences, which later got demerged into Pharmova and Jubilant Ingravia. So I knew Jubilant Pharmova from 2009. What happened was, very interestingly, 15th February 2021, my PMS went live.
Okay.
14th February was the X date for the demerger of Jubilant Life Science into Jubilant Pharmova and Jubilant Ingravia. And I knew that, at least my math told me, that upon demerging, the stock will give me 70-80% return. And I missed that deadline by one day because my license came on 15th and the X date was 14th.
Okay.
So I did not buy Jubilant Pharmova immediately upon listing, upon demerger, because
License ही नहीं है.
my product went live the next day after the X date. I clearly remember the X date was 14 Feb 2021 of the demerger, and my PMS license came through on 15th.
और ऐसा क्यों लग रहा था कि क्योंकि valuation
इंडिविजुअल पार्ट्स का सम कर लेते हैं, तो उससे समझ में आ गया था कि इंडिविजुअल पार्ट्स का सम इज
greater than the whole.
तो वो समझ में आ गया था कि वैल्यू तो है स्टॉक में. बट वो सेम प्रॉब्लम कि लाइसेंस नहीं है तो कैसे खरीदें, तो couldn't participate in the demerger, छूट गया. तो 15 फेब को लाइसेंस आया. अब वो डीमर्ज तो हो चुका है, तो अब तो द सेम लॉजिक विल नॉट वर्क. ठीक है, तो लेट जुबिलेंट फार्मोवा लिस्ट, इट लिस्टेड, लेट इट ट्रेड, इट ट्रेडेड. Then they got some US FDA problem in their generic business. So Jubilant Pharmova has 5-6 businesses, 5-6 verticals. One vertical is the radio pharma business, which is essentially a part of the diagnostic industry. Before the MRI or CT scan, they give you those iodine pills, so that your nerves are reflected in the scan. So they manufacture that.
And they're the
only one in India who manufacture for US.
Very interesting.
So they're the only company listed in India who manufacture for the American market. ऐसे तो Blue Jet वगैरह भी करता है, but they are not manufacturing the end product. Jubilant manufactures the end product.
Interesting.
So Blue Jet, some products they do intermediate, some product they do API. Nonetheless, so Jubi का एक business radio pharma है, which is a very large scale, very profitable but very slow growing business because they have the older radio pharmaceuticals in their portfolio, right? Then their one business they have, and again 5-6 हैं, but one business they have is allergy. Allergy में, so in the US and the advanced economies, every year there are thousands of deaths because allergy के जो normal दवाइयाँ होती है ना, they are non-venomous दवाइयाँ. मतलब they don't include any very high potent venom level cure in them. Jubilant is the only company in our understanding in the US that has a license to handle bee venom, to make allergy drugs from bee venom.
What is bee venom? Okay,
bee venom. मधुमक्खी का स्टिंग निकाल के उसको दवाई में मिक्स करके या उसका कोई फॉर्मुलेशन प्रिपेयर करके वो देते हैं. उससे क्या है कि अगर आपको बहुत ज़बरदस्त एलर्जिक रिएक्शन हो रहा है तो दैट वेनमस ड्रग कैन एक्चुअली स्टॉप योर रिएक्शन, वेयर एज अ नॉर्मल एंटी एलर्जी ड्रग विल नॉट बी एबल टू स्टॉप योर रिएक्शन, द पेशेंट विल डाई आउट ऑफ एलर्जी. सो ये जो प्रोडक्ट है अभी सिर्फ यूएस में अवेलेबल है, और सिर्फ जुबिलेंट बेचता है, एंड दे आर नाउ गोइंग टू यूरोप विद द प्रोडक्ट। यूरोप में भी प्रोडक्ट एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता है, सो दे आर अ मोनोपोली इन यूएस, दे विल प्रोबेबली बिकम अ मोनोपोली इन यूरोप in the near future, which may be 3, 4, 5 years. And then they had this generic business, which is the US ANDA business, जहाँ पे US FDA का issue आ गया था, तो anyways they were not making money because of lack of scale and pricing pressure, and now because of US FDA, whatever little revenue they had, that was also going to go, right? And the stock obviously plummeted because of this. So if my memory serves me right, वो 900 रुपए का stock, again 850 900 रुपए का stock, वो गिर के कुछ 400 450 रुपए पे आ गया. So then I again sat with my analyst and my team, and we did the math. We said, okay, so radiopharma, allergy, generics, CRDMO, sterile injectable manufacturing, ये जो 5-6 businesses हैं, let's value them individually, right? And let's assume the generic value goes to 0. So now problem क्या होता है? When you have a business with 6 verticals, and 2 of your verticals or 3 of your verticals are bleeding in terms of PAT. So let's say vertical A, B, C are profitable, D, E, F are loss making. Let's say A, B, C make 200 rupees of profit, and D, E, F together lose 100 rupees in loss, or let's say 50 rupees in loss. Then your consolidated profit looks at like 150, because 200 minus 150.
Right.
200 minus 50 gives you 150. Now the street, because they may not be able to estimate these numbers, they value the stock at X times 150 crores of PAT. We don't look at it that way. We say that let's value the company on this 200 crore profit, right? And the loss-making businesses, you have 2 options as an entrepreneur, or the owner of the business has 2 options.
या तो बंद करोगे या अच्छा करोगे,
या तो बंद करोगे या प्रॉफिटेबल करोगे, लॉस मेकिंग तो नहीं चलाओगे ना.
या
तो हाउ डू आई वैल्यू दिस बिजनेसेस एट दैट पॉइंट? आई टेक द बुक वैल्यू, कि अगर बंद कर देगा
तो बुक वैल्यू है,
तो जो बुक वैल्यू है वो उसको बेचेगा ना, उतना पैसा आएगा, तो उसको बुक वैल्यू पे ले रहे. सो वी वैल्यू दिस 200. तो हमारा अपसाइड कहाँ से आता है? स्ट्रीट वैल्यू कर रहा है 150 इंटू 23,000 करोड़ पे, हम वैल्यू कर रहे हैं 200 इंटू 24,000 करोड़, प्लस द बुक वैल्यू ऑफ द लॉस मेकिंग बिजनेसेस मे बी अनदर 1,000 करोड़,
राइट?
तो हमारा वैल्यू आता है 5,000 करोड़ और स्टॉक चल रहा है 3,000 करोड़.
मार्जिन ऑफ सेफ्टी मिल गया,
मार्जिन ऑफ सेफ्टी है. तो हमने बोला बस ले लो, देखते हैं कैसे बिजनेसेस इवॉल्व होंगे,
फिर देखते हैं.
हाँ. एंड टुडे आउट ऑफ द 3 लॉस मेकिंग बिजनेसेस, 2 आर प्रॉफिट मेकिंग, 1 इज मार्जिनल लॉस.
हम इस पे आगे चलेंगे, लेकिन मुझे ये समझना है सर कि अपने पास इतने सारे आइडियाज हैं, मेरे पास 100 रुपए हैं और मेरे पास 10 आइडियाज हैं.
करेक्ट.
अब हाउ डू यू मेक योर माइंड कि मुझे इस आइडिया पे
इतना परसेंट
20% डालना है, इस आइडिया पे मैं 3% डालूंगा, इस आइडिया पे मैं 10% डालूंगा. हाउ डू यू सॉल्व दिस प्रॉब्लम?
यार देख, बहुत मैथमेटिकल नहीं है ये. इसमें कई वेरिएबल्स आते हैं. So the most important mathematical variable here is the risk reward ratio.
Okay.
What I told you was
asymmetric.
200% upside, 20% downside. So risk reward is 10:1. Versus let's say another idea that I have, the risk reward is 5:1. So that the stock which has 10:1 will have a higher weight, and the stock which has 5:1 will have lower weight compared to this stock.
Okay.
But both will make it to the portfolio because both are great risk rewards.
Right.
5:1 or 10:1. So that is one thing that explains that sizing. Second thing that explains the sizing is the availability of the stock. So even at our level, right? अगर कोई कंपनी है जो 1,000 करोड़ का मार्केट कैप है, right? And that is offering me 10:1. But I can't buy it enough. 70% तो प्रमोटर के पास है.
कहाँ से लूंगा?
तो 300 करोड़ का तो फ्लोट है. मेरा फंड का साइज, मेरा भी 500, 600, 700 करोड़ का फंड है. तो मैं कहाँ से लूंगा? Right? So some stocks we still like it so much that we cannot make it 10% of our portfolio because of the liquidity issue. But we can make it 3, 4, 5% of the portfolio given the liquidity. So then that becomes a constraint. That is not a driving. Liquidity is a constraint. So what drives the higher weight? Risk reward, our confidence in our ability to forecast also. So if I am forecasting, let's say, a steel business, right? I know I have no understanding of the global steel prices. So in a steel business, my analyst might have great forecasts, but I have very low confidence in his ability and my ability to forecast steel prices. But if I am forecasting a hospital, that to a cancer hospital, I have very high ability to forecast, and my confidence in that forecast is very high, right? So it is not just the Excel sheet number, which is the risk reward, is also my confidence in that number, which is the art of investing, as we were talking. And then the liquidity, which is a very mathematical number, and then, the reputation of the management. So the management might be telling me that in next 5 years, I'll triple the profits. But in last 5 years, they've not even doubled.
They're not walking the talk.
They're not walking the talk. They're just saying something else. They're doing something else. So again, the sizing takes a hit. Even if you want to have it in your portfolio, because things might appear different to you this time than what they were in the last 5 years, but the sizing will be different. You will say that, okay, let me wait and watch. Let me take up a small position. Let me watch. If they walk the talk this time around, I can scale it up eventually. So some of the stocks which you see today as a smaller percentage, a year or two down the road, they might be a much bigger percentage.
But you don't read many books, right?
No. Few.
Few. कौन सी बुक से जो आप बार-बार पढ़ते हो?
So obviously the Super Analyst. I think that book.
Super Analyst.
Yes.
Okay.
That book taught me how to value businesses. Then there's a book by Gautam Baid.
Joys of Compounding.
Joys of Compounding.
I just hosted him. He was in India.
Yeah.
I hosted him 3-4 months back, but नहीं 3 महीने पहले. But I have not published it.
Yeah.
But I'll publish. Yeah.
So I think great guy to talk to.
He's very interesting.
Very learned guy. Very admirable his work. And I read the Morgan Housel memos and his book, Psychology of Money.
He's just launched a third book.
Yeah.
The Art of Spending.
So these are the few writers I follow. I think in my view of the world, while reading books is important, what is perhaps more important is to implement the learnings from the books.
True.
And I mean, at least from myself and my team, I expect that you learn what you implement. You implement what you learn.
Yeah. नहीं तो फिर it's a leaking bucket.
हाँ, तो otherwise क्या होता है? See, all these guys, be it a Morgan Housel, be it Gautam Baid, or be it any guy, when they write these books about investing or about life in general, they write from their experiences, their successes, their misses and hits, right?
Yeah.
And it's their psychology, it's their frameworks that reflects in those books. Whereas you, as an individual, you might be very different or somewhat different from their personality, their framework. Your framework might be different from their framework. So there is no one way of making money. There is no one way of investing. There is no one way of living, right?
Yeah.
But you are unique. And because you are unique, your framework will be unique, your lifestyle can be unique, your way of enjoying life or way of spending life will be different. So you have to tailor these learnings to yourself. Now what happens is when you read like 500 books, you have read about 500 individual, their lives, their misses and hits.
You lose your originality.
One, you will lose your originality perhaps. Two, you may try to copy what you feel is most comfortable to you. And that may not necessarily be the best outcome that you want. I mean, sometimes the right thing to do is very uncomfortable. So I'll give you an example. I read this book by, I forget the name of the author. He is a high frequency trader, right? And he has done some phenomenal 37-40% IRR over the last 25 years or something. Some great IRR just by trading high frequency trades. So I read the book just to understand how do you make money from high frequency trading, because that's something I don't know. So I was just interested to understand what he was doing. Now, if you ask me today, can I be a high frequency trader? Absolutely not. And it's not in my DNA. It's not my job also. It's not in my DNA. And even if I wanted to do it, I wouldn't be any good at it. So what is my strength? My strength is to restrict my impulse to act. So many people do not understand or underappreciate the fact that not taking an action is perhaps the loudest action you can take. Because history has taught us that people who are less active end up making much more returns than people who are active.
High frequency trading में ऐसा नहीं होता.
It's a different, I know.
Yeah.
Different
But I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But in the cash market,
Yeah.
right? In the cash market where you're not doing high frequency trading, or in the buy and hold situation.
Yes.
Right. So if when you buy a business, you're thinking 10 years, 5 years, 20 years. 2 quarters down the road, 4 quarters down the road, some event happens, something happens, and you end up thinking कि यार ये तो मैंने what happened in this business? The stock falls 2%, whereas you had expected that because of this event, stock should fall 10-12%. Then there is this impulse to sell. It should have been down 10. If it's down only 2, should I sell? And then maybe I'll buy back once at 10% down. Generally, what happen if you sell when it's 2% down? Let's say 100 rupee stock went to 98. You expect it to go to 90 because of the event, but it went to 98. Now let's say you sell at 98. What happens next sometimes is the stock goes to 105. despite that event. Now, as a human, at least as in my psychology,
दर्द होगा दिल में.
yeah, one तो दर्द होगा, two, आप 98 पे खरीदा हुआ स्टॉक 105 पे दोबारा नहीं खरीद पाओगे. It goes
normal
against your
retail
ego.
investor psychology.
It goes against your ego to admit a mistake.
Yeah.
So there are two ways to overcome it. I either don't have that ego. Unfortunately, I'm not that big a guy. I do have a bit of an ego. तो मैं क्या करता हूँ, मैं 98 पे एक्ट नहीं करता. मैं बोलता हूँ भाई अपनी 5 साल की फिलोसफी थी. Nothing has changed in that. Yes, there is a minor adverse event which has happened right now, which can obviously turn the other way around also next 2 months, 3 months, or 2 years. I don't know. So the idea is to keep the framework intact. The idea is to restrict action unless absolutely important. So आप हमारा InCred healthcare portfolio, if you see when we have churned, एक तो average churn of the portfolio is around 15, 16, 17%, right? So our average holding period tends to be about 6 years for a given stock. Second, if at all that churn has happened, when has it happened? Number one, it has happened if the stock becomes too expensive for us to hold. So historically, we have held Max Healthcare,
Aster DM,
Dr. Lal.
Yeah.
These are stocks that even Aster DM at one point we exited. Aster DM.
आपका predetermined value threshold was
Predetermined value threshold आ गया था. We sold it. And then things changed. The merger happened with Care and all that announcement happened. Now it's again within our tolerance framework in terms of valuation. So now we again bought it. So we have this framework where, the bull into bull, as I told you.
Yeah.
So if the bull into bull price comes, we look to exit the stock unless fundamentals are meaningfully improved. If the fundamentals have been the same and my bull into bull price is already there on the screen, the impulse is to exit. Take the profit, take that money, and put it somewhere else where you can probably grow that profit. So that's one when we churn. Two, when we churn is, let's say we had thought the management will do A, B, C, but the management went out and did X, Y, Z. They did something different compared to what we were expecting them to do. So then our investment thesis is violated. And once your investment thesis is violated, there's no point in holding on to the stock because the company has proven to you that it can't be predicted. And our job fundamentally is to sort of anticipate, not predict, anticipate the future and try to get a meaningful sort of return out of that anticipation. So if the company is not doing what you had anticipated, then there is no point in holding on to the stock, be it a profit or a loss, whatever you are sitting on. Let's just encash it and move on. So that's what we did in a couple of other stocks. Sequence Scientific being one example, where it was a veterinary business. We originally thought they would focus more on the branded piece of the business, but the CEO left, a new CEO came, and we realized that they were focusing more on the new management was focusing more on the unbranded side of the business.
Why would they do that?
So just this between branded and unbranded, right? A branded business is extremely sticky, highly profitable, but has a huge gestation period to build. To establish a brand, it takes expenses, OPEX, and it takes time.
Yeah.
So there is a gestation period, which is a loss-making gestation period. For an unbranded business, if your cost is better than the others, the gratification is almost immediate.
Yeah.
Immediately you get volume share, immediately you get cash flow.
But it's commodity at the end.
But it's commodity. There is no stickiness. Somebody else makes it 1 rupee lower than yours.
You're gone.
Right? So it depends on the view that the management or the business owner takes of the world. Is he building a business for 10 years or is he building a business for this year's profit? What is he more oriented towards? If he is more oriented towards a 10-year outlook of his company and his business, he'll probably go the branded way. He will say, okay, I'll take the 5-6 years of pain and then I will emerge much stronger out of it. As I said, anti-fragile. And an unbranded guy will generally want immediate gratification. He wants his capital to be returned to him in the next 3-5 years. And then even if the business goes awry, he'll say, look, this is the profit. My capital is already returned from the business. So this is the profit that I'm riding. So even if it goes up and down somewhat, I'm okay. So, I mean, these are two different mindsets. None of them is right or wrong. I'm saying from an equity, long-term shareholder standpoint, I want the former than the latter.
Very interesting. अपनी जो एक्टिविटी अपन कर रहे थे वो करते हैं ये नाम बाहर भी कोई रिसर्च करेगा तो उसको मिल जाएंगे
Sure.
But my intent is to two things. Number one is to understand your thinking process.
Yes.
And number two, to enlighten myself about new and interesting business models.
Fair.
RPG Life Sciences.
Yes. So how and why it happened?
How and what was your investment process? And The business model.
The business model. So RPG Life Science is a branded generic pharma company in India.
Okay.
So they sell branded drugs in India. Now what happens in India is, if a patient has fever, let's say in India, he goes to the pharmacy, the pharmacist, he goes to the doctor writes, let's say Dolo. What do you take when you get fever at home?
I don't take any medicine.
You don't take any medicine.
Yes.
But what do you guys take? घर पे fever होता है तो क्या लेते हो? Dolo, Crocin. Dolo is what everybody takes, right? तो कोई भी मुझे एक पत्ता डोलो का दाम बताओ, कितना पे करते हो एक पत्ता डोलो?
40, 50, 60 रुपए.
Correct. So everybody is guessing, right? Nobody knows the price. Don't you think that's a great business to invest in, where the consumer doesn't care about the price of the product he's buying, right? So that's a great business to invest in, and that is what RPG Life Sciences is. It was a great business to invest in. The only thing was, because RPG Life was a very small part of the RPG group. So this is the RPG group run by Harsh Goenka.
Okay.
Harsh Goenka,
sir.
Yeah, so there are two Goenkas,
Yes,
Harsh and Sanjeev. Sanjeev Goenka group is the Calcutta-based group. The Harsh Goenka group is the Bombay-based one. So RPG Life is Bombay.
The one who is very active on Twitter.
The other one who's very active on Twitter. That's right, Harsh Bhaiya. So Harsh Goenka's group. So if you look at Harsh Goenka's group, they have KEC, Zensar, CEAT being the largest of these. And then they have an RPG Life, which was a very small company in the scheme of things. So even though it was a branded business, it did not die because it was a branded business, but it had no management focus. It had nobody running the ship efficiently. And it was a company which is just surviving on its own because it's a branded business which चल रहा था.
किस चीज का brand था इनका?
So इनका largest brand है एक transplant drug है called Azoran. Azoran is given to patients who are undergoing kidney transplants.
Okay.
ताकि the body accepts the organ. Then they have another drug called Lomotil, L-O-M-O-T-I-L, Lomotil. Lomotil is given in people with digestion problems. And the currently largest selling drug is a drug called Neprosin. Neprosin is an NSAID. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So it's given for pain. So patients with chronic pain, आपको arthritis है, osteoarthritis है, तो उनको NSAIDs देते हैं क्योंकि स्टेरॉइडल ड्रग्स देंगे तो बहुत जल्दी बोन्स खराब हो जाएंगे स्टेरॉइड से. तो यू वांट टू गिव देम नॉन स्टेरॉइडल ड्रग्स. तो उसमें नेप्रोसिन आता है. So these are the three large brands out there, and there were many more, but these are the larger ones. So we knew the brands, we knew the market presence, we knew that they were fairly sort of under the radar, and nothing was changing for the company. The growth was very, very suboptimal. Margins were even more suboptimal. And I think back in 2016-17, their margins used to be 6-7% EBITDA. And just for comparable businesses, branded businesses in India generally do between 30 and 40% EBITDA. This guy was 6-7% EBITDA. Top line growth 2-3-4%, which was pretty much coming from pricing, nothing to do with volume growth. And the market in India at those times, the market volume growth was 7-8%, and they add to that 2-3% price. So clearly an underperformer, no captain on the ship, nothing happening. And then there came out a release. Mr. Yugal Sikri was joining RPG Life as a MD or CEO. Now he was already on RPG Life board as an independent director, non-executive independent director. Yugal Sikri's background, so he has worked I think about 14 years with Novartis, before that 10 years with Ranbaxy, and before that with other multinational organizations. And I had heard of him from the industry in the past as a very tight taskmaster. He's very focused on getting every penny out of the market and maximizing profit for the company. So once I heard this news, obviously I went back to the market and I asked the industry peers. Yugal is joining back. I mean, he had retired actually, which is why he was an independent director. But he's coming back into an executive role. What could be the reason, rhyme, and how do you think he will perform? Everybody said that, look, he retired a bit early in our view. He has a lot of life left in him. And if he's deciding to come back, we are very sure he'll do a great job. That's the feedback I got about Yugal Sikri.
Was that the sole reason for you to get into the company?
So 3 reasons, right? Valuation was dirt cheap because the company was not doing anything. Margins were low, growth was low. So nothing could get worse for the company. And now you have a new captain who was a great captain.
When did he join?
He joined in 2017 end. And if you see RPG's EBITDA margin from 2017 of about 8%, 7% EBITDA, today they're reporting 26-27% EBITDA.
And what's the story that you're looking to play out?
Yeah, so it's a management turnaround story here. So good business, great business model, not being run by anybody credible or good enough. Suddenly you get someone who's credible and good enough. He will make the changes which are required for the model to yield the kind of results that it should yield. See, the tough part is building the brand. That already existed. To milk a built brand is the easy part.
which was driving from the RPG. Very interesting.
Which is what Yugal sir came and did. He basically milked the brand which was already in place. And then he added new brands to it, which was obviously the second leg of the story. So in RPG, I think our initial purchase was at $350-400. Today, I think it's $2,400. And we still don't feel the story is over. Although Yugal sir has retired now, there is a new captain in the ship. But the guy who's just joined as the CEO or MD, he has worked with Yugal sir for a decade or so. So he knows the playbook. He's basically continuing the job.
FDC लिमिटेड के बिजनेस मॉडल से क्या सीख सकते हैं?
Yeah, same cheese as RPG, to be honest. Just to give you, in FDC, I don't have very high regards for the execution ability of the management.
Okay.
So
But you still hold.
I do hold.
Yeah.
The reason being valuations are dirt cheap, again, compared to what these similar franchises trade at. FDC's valuations are very, very cheap. Second, if you look at FDC's past track record, so they IPO'd in 1997 at 7 rupees a share. Today they are at whatever 450 rupees a share. So there's a 23% CAGR return for their shareholders since IPO. And also, if you look at FDC's brands, right? So do you know what Electrol is?
Okay. Or ORS.
ORS,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So we are one of the very few people who know that Electrol is an ORS.
मैं पढ़ा था NCERT में था ये क्या?
हाँ, NCERT में थे तो आपने पढ़ा था. Otherwise, majority people don't even know that Electrol is an ORS. They called Electrol. Because घर में फीवर हुआ Electrol लेके आओ, घर में मलेरिया हो गया Electrol लेके आओ.
सर्फ के साथ ऐसा होता था.
हाँ, सर्फ के साथ होता था.
डेटॉल के साथ ऐसा होता है.
डेटॉल, कैडबरीज के साथ ऐसा.
चॉकलेट, डेटॉल चॉकलेट. या
कोई हम एटलीस्ट मेरे बचपन में कोई नहीं बोलता था कि चॉकलेट खानी है. हम बोलते थे कैडबरी खाना है. फॉर अस कैडबरी एंड चॉकलेट वर द सेम. तो आज भी इंडिया में बाय एंड लार्ज इलेक्ट्रॉल के लिए इट इज द सेम. People say electrol lena hai. Nobody says ORS lena. Electrol. It has become such a household brand. Then they have another household brand called Enerzal. It is an energy drink. Enerzal. So Enerzal is basically a competitor to, let's say, your Sting or your Red Bull, where it is an energy drink.
Which is a crazy thing.
Yeah.
The amount of caffeine that it gives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but some people need exports people, for instance.
You know, biggest market of that's 20 rupees Sting. Libra, जो दिन का खाना skip करता है, जो काम करता है, for them it becomes 20 रुपए.
Energy.
You are giving them double the amount of caffeine that you are getting from other things. The biggest market is that.
Yeah,
of course, अब young बच्चे भी
ले रहे हैं. हाँ. तो इसका Enerzol एक बहुत अच्छा इन्होंने franchise खड़ा कर लिया है. Then they have Ziffy. Ziffy has also become a very popular drug. So, you know, creating brands is a part of FDC's culture. And it is not easy to do it time and again. But FDC is again one of the very few companies that has shown us that they can do it time and again. And this is despite the top management not being very visible, vocal, or being very aggressive in terms of how to capture the market. They're fairly laid back. They're non-communicative. They're not visible anywhere. You will not see Chandwarkars, in CNBC or whatever. So, despite all those, I would say, limited drawbacks, the business model is great. The numbers are good. Balance sheet is clean. They buy back every year some stock. Promoters continuously increase their stake because they sometimes don't participate in the buyback. And they're a cash throwing machine. They throw cash. And they have compounded at 23% for the shareholders, right? So, for me, that's a very low risk, significant return kind of. Again, risk return trade-off is good. Because my upside, even if though it's 25%, my downside is also 5% or 10%. The stock generally doesn't see much of a downside. Because the business is so steady and so secular business. So FDC sort of fills that framework where we find a steady compounder, as we call it, without much of a risk. It's just a steady compounding machine for us.
Vimta Laboratories Limited.
Yep. So Vimta is a CRO organization. They do
CRO, sir?
Clinical research, contract research organization. So contract research organizations are basically the pharmas of the world. They want to outsource the latter part of research and development. So what they want to do is they want to focus on the earlier part of the research cycle in a drug. So earlier part of the research cycle implies proof of concept, engineering the molecule, getting to see if the molecule works in mice or certain other animals, guinea pigs, and so on. But once that proof of concept exists, they don't want to do the human trials, clinical trials. And
उसमें time लगता है.
One time लगता है. तो you need a multi-geography presence. आपको एक Caucasian area में करना पड़ेगा, एक brown skin में करना पड़ेगा, एक black skin पे करना पड़ेगा, एक oriental पे करना पड़ेगा. तो वो सब too complex for them or too time consuming for them to get into. So they want to outsource these things. So companies like Vimta and Syngene, which you will last nest, they both fall in that same bucket, where they basically do this work for the innovators for a fee. So
बट इंडिया में इनोवेटर्स कहाँ हैं?
India में नहीं है, so they do it for the foreign innovators.
Okay.
They don't do it for the Indian innovators.
Okay.
So they do it for the Pfizers, for the Amgens, for the Johnson and Johnsons of the world. So
But
ये
what's the moat? Why is the business?
coming to them? So their moat is simple. It's a cost arbitrage. So if a scientist sitting out of US charges you, let's say, $600 an hour, our scientist will do it for $200 an hour, right? And it's similar or better results. It's not inferior for sure. And they have more access to the geography, so they understand the geography, the DNA better. So imagine an American scientist traveling all the way to India to do a trial on the brown skin for a given drug, right? Now his ability to understand the genetics of a Indian would be inferior to the ability of an Indian doctor working on that Indian using the foreign drug. So he will understand the genetics better,
Yeah.
and he'll be able to run the trial a little better, and he's obviously lower cost. So you get relatively better output, you get relatively lower cost, and that's the moat, really. Now the other moat here is, actually the bigger moat here is the trust. Now look at the Pfizers or the Johnson and Johnsons or the Amgens of the world. What is their biggest asset? It is their intellectual property,
या
right?
जब तक पेटेंट क्लिफ नहीं आ जाता तब तक वो
हाँ.
कमा के खाएंगे.
IP से कमाते हैं वो लोग,
Yeah.
correct? अब ये जो IP है, that IP you have to share with your clinical research organization, your CRO,
Right.
so that they can use that drug in the appropriate patients.
Right.
Now, just imagine I am sharing my most valuable information with you, so the kind of trust that I have in you.
Is immense.
Yes. Now, that trust I've been able to build over you through decades, if not years, and decades of experiences with you. That's why I'm trusting you. For a new player to come and gain that trust from me is possible.
Very difficult. But difficult.
Possible, but it's time consuming. It's going to take 5, 10, 20 years for the new player as well. That's the moat. So these guys have the trust of their business partners.
How did you hear about them for the first time?
So Vimta, I heard because I was one day, so look, as fund managers, as analysts, when we travel, our eyes and ears are always open to see things around us.
Okay.
Right? So Vimta in 2014 had gotten in some trouble with Ranbaxy. Some drug trial had gone awry. And that's the first time I heard of Vimta. This time around I heard of Vimta because they were opening a lab in JNPT, Mumbai.
Okay. Jawaharlal Nehru Terminal. हाँ. Port. हाँ.
Port. So they were opening a lab there, and that was very unusual because it is all government land, and it's a private company opening a lab on government land. So later I just tried to figure out how is this possible. So we came to know that the government has given them a contract that do this testing, and for that testing, the government wants the lab to be on the port because the product is such that they don't want to take it out of the port and then test it. They want the product tested then and there at the port.
उससे क्या फायदा होगा?
So once the product goes off the port, it dissipates to
Fast
out of directions, right? So then you don't get all the samples. यहाँ पे क्या है कि अगर आपके 10 कंटेनर आए for a given product, तो आप हर कंटेनर में से 2-3 पैकेट्स निकाल के उसकी टेस्टिंग कर लेते हो, which is sampling essentially. But एक बार अगर वो 10 कंटेनर पोर्ट के बाहर चले गए, तो वो 10 अलग डायरेक्शन में कंटेनर चले गए. अब आप हर एक कंटेनर से 2-3 पैकेट कैसे निकाल के टेस्ट करोगे? क्योंकि वो 10 अलग डायरेक्शन में जा चुके हैं, राइट? एक मुंबई से नागपुर चला गया, एक नासिक चला गया, एक मुंबई में मेन बैंड्रा में आ गया. तो आप उसको पोर्ट लेवल पे टेस्ट कर लेते हो सैंपल को, कि ठीक है ना.
This decision was central government or state government?
The state government.
State government.
JNPT. हाँ. तो बेसिकली तो JNPT पे इनका ये तो तब मेरा इंटरेस्ट जागा कि विमटा से बात तो करें कि क्या हो रहा है. I had last heard of government 14. And then when I learned from them, I also spoke to them about what new things they are doing, how they are executing business, and ये global tailwind to CRO, CDMO तो चल ही रहा है.
Yeah.
So how is that going to benefit them? And then we realized it's a very investable story. And that's how we started investing in Vimta. And it's always been a great company. They had their misfortunes in the past, like 2014 Ranbaxy issue was a misfortune. But like I said, in any business, those things happen. It happened to them as well.
टॉरेंट को अपन स्किप करेंगे क्योंकि टॉरेंट और एरिक का आपने मुझे मॉनेटाइजेशन का एग्जांपल दिया था. मेट्रोपोलिस हेल्थ केयर लिमिटेड.
So Metropolis is again same diagnostic story. Just like, so we have Thyrocare, which is a B2B. We have Krishna, which is B2G. Metropolis is a B2C pick. So
इसका ब्रांड क्या है?
Metropolis is the brand.
Metropolis is the brand.
Metropolis. And actually मुंबई में काफी जगह हैं ये लोग.
Okay.
If you haven't heard, then you are maybe in a pocket where Metropolis isn't present. Otherwise, Mumbai में आपको बहुत जगह Metropolis के labs मिल जाएंगे, especially South Mumbai.
Very interesting.
हाँ, so they are very, very dominant in South Mumbai actually. So they are one of the more higher end diagnostic players. When I say higher end, what do I mean? One, higher pricing, and that is accompanied by higher service.
Okay.
ये लोग फ्रुगैलिटी वाला कॉन्सेप्ट जो अपने थायरोकेयर में बात कर रहे थे या कृष्णा में, यहाँ नहीं है, ये
Consumer
लग्जरी है.
experience.
हाँ.
Okay. Very interesting.
ये लग्जरी है. So when you call up a Metropolis, they will tell you a time, 7:30 p.m. The phlebotomist will come. He will be at your door at 7:30. He'll be wearing a cap, gloves.
Very interesting.
He'll open a new pack for you
In front of your
in front of your eyes. And thank you, sir. Well read, well understood. When he sort of draws blood, it probably will not hurt you because he's that well trained, has a number of years of experience.
South Bombay population को cater करने के लिए.
Kind of, but they're not only in South Bombay. They're present in many affluent areas, but they're mostly an affluent area lab.
STDM की आपने पहली स्टोरी सुनाई.
Yes.
कि earlier you exited.
Yes.
Because of the threshold valuation, and then you again.
Yes, because things changed. Then the merger happened, right? So पहले जब हम STDM को value कर रहे थे, we were valuing STDM as a standalone chain of hospitals. Then what happened was STDM and CARE का merger announce हो गया. Now STDM is primarily Western and South focused on its own. CARE on its own is North and East focused. Now when these two marry or merge, you have a pan-India chain. And with the pan-India chain comes those synergies that we spoke of.
Yeah.
You'll have your procurement synergies, you will have your operational synergies, you will have your top management salary synergies, which all reduces your overhead and your margins will go up.
Very interesting. इस portfolio में are we missing out any interesting company, any interesting business model that you have figured out recently?
Many, but valuations are not what I like, right? So, for instance, recently an IPO came, Sai Life Sciences. It's also a CRO, great company by all means and measures. The valuation is just so high that I can't touch it. End of the day, I have to make returns. So I don't believe, in my opinion, that I can invest in that stock today and make decent returns for my shareholders. So I will not have it in my portfolio, but I admire the company. They have done well, they're doing well, and hopefully they'll continue to do well.
What are other companies that you like but you don't want to invest in now because of valuation, and you're rigorously looking for them to have a dip?
One is Sai Life. Let me think.
जो आपके radar में है.
It's a branded generic company, but they do things slightly differently. So this Alchem. Alchem is branded generic, but they are also active in the trade generic segment in India.
Okay.
The trade generic segment slightly differs from the branded generic segment, but I think Alchem promoters are really good. They have that ability, like FDC, to create brand after brand after brand. So that's another company I really like. But again, the valuations keep me slightly away from them because they have both branded and trade generics.
अगर आप PMS hold नहीं कर, if you, let's say, if you don't have the fiduciary responsibility,
Right.
This is your portfolio that we discussed.
Correct.
If you were a retail investor,
Right.
how will the portfolio differ?
It would not, other than the fact that you will have a 4-5 stock portfolio, not a 15 stock portfolio. So the very reason why we run, let's say, a 12, 13, 14 stock portfolio is for majority of our investors. The volatility that a 4-5 stock portfolio brings will be too much.
Yeah.
Right? And they will not be able to appreciate the
और
fact.
फिर वो कॉल करेंगे आपको.
हाँ, मतलब कॉल करे ना भी करे, अगला परेशान होगा.
Yeah.
For me, that is more important, that he should be a relaxed individual, right? You should have a good quality of life if you have been able to invest with people like me. But if he is getting stressed because ki 1 month portfolio is up 6%, the other month portfolio is down 4%, then it is not a good experience for him if he is not able to understand what I am trying to do. So by the way, we have at InCred, we have 2 versions of the healthcare portfolio. This is the more elongated version. This is a 13-14 stock portfolio.
This is the diversified.
This is the diversified portfolio of 13-14 stocks. We have a 4 to 6 stock portfolio as well, which is where my personal money and many family offices are.
इसमें कौन-कौन सी कंपनीज हैं?
यही इसमें जो टॉप 5 है ना, वही उसमें.
Very interesting.
बट उसमें वेटेजेस अलग है क्योंकि उसमें वो टॉप 5 के बाद और नाम नहीं है, वो टॉप 5 ही है.
And are they equally distributed?
No. So weightages are again.
सबसे highest weightage किसका है? HSD?
Same as SCG.
Very interesting.
Second highest उसमें भी Thyrocare है.
Very interesting.
तो वो सेम है, लेकिन बस वेटेजेस के एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यूज अलग हैं. जैसे इसमें SCG अगर 20 हो सकता है, उसमें SCG 30 हो.
Got it.
इसमें हाँ, सो वैसा है. तो अगर मैं फंड मैनेजर नहीं भी होता या अगर मेरे पास ये मैंडेट नहीं भी होता फिड्यूशियरी, तो मैं वो 4-5 स्टॉक का पोर्टफोलियो ही ओन करता. बिकॉज एट एन इंडिविजुअल लेवल एक दो स्टॉक खरीदने की तो हिम्मत मेरे में भी नहीं है कि भाई दैट बिकम्स टू रिस्की, यू आर बेटिंग योर हाउस ऑन वन हाउस, राइट? बट अगर आप 4-5 पे इन्वेस्ट कर लेते हो एंड डिफरेंट बिजनेस मॉडल्स, जैसे ये थायरोकेयर B2B है, तो कृष्णा B2G है, तो HCG कैंसर सुपर स्पेशलिटी है, तो RPG ब्रांडेड जेनेरिक है, तो आप डिवर्सिफाइड माई सेल्फ इनफ।
सो आपने शुरुआत में बोला था कि अगर मेरी स्टोरी प्ले आउट करेगी तो भी मैं पैसे बनाना चाहता हूँ,
Yes.
नहीं भी करेगी तो
तो
भी
भी
मैं
पैसे बनाना चाहता हूँ, करेक्ट।
जस्ट टेकिंग अ corollary फॉर दिस, डू यू थिंक कि अगर स्टॉक ओवर वैल्यूड नहीं है तो मैं खरीद के पैसे बना रहा हूँ,
करेक्ट।
और अगर ओवर वैल्यूड है तो मैं शॉर्ट करके पैसे बना रहा हूँ? तो कभी आपने सोचा कि किसी को मैं शॉर्ट करूंगा?
नहीं यार, देखो, एक तो इंडिया में शॉर्टिंग इज ओनली पॉसिबल फॉर लिक्विड नेम्स, द लार्जर वंस।
ओके,
वी डोंट हैव FNO ऑन द स्मॉलर नेम्स।
यस,
So the only way to short a smaller stock is to not own it,
या,
which is what we do. So we don't own some of the stocks that we don't like.
इंटरेस्टिंग। इस पोर्टफोलियो पे सर डॉलराइजेशन जो पहली
कैसे
बार हम देख रहे हैं कैसे इम्पैक्ट करेगा?
So look, if by
And
de-dollarize, हाँ,
मैं मेरे पास 200 सवाल और हैं,
हाँ,
मैं 200 पे नहीं जाना चाहता,
Correct.
मैं BC पूछूंगा, लेकिन आई वांट टू गो डीप
Deep.
एंड क्रिएट सम
Fair.
अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑन दैट।
Fair.
सो डॉलराइजेशन इस पे कैसे करेगा?
Fair.
व्हाट आर द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स?
sure. So देखो, पहला चीज तो ये समझते हैं कि what does de-dollarization mean for us. मेरे लिए de-dollarization का ये मतलब है कि डॉलर की वैल्यू गिरेगी
राइट,
versus other currencies, including the rupee, which means dollar to rupee, which is let's say 90 rupees today, at some point it can go to 60, 50, 40.
जिससे इंपोर्ट पे,
Possibly, हाँ, जिससे इंपोर्ट सस्ता हो जाएगा,
एक्सपोर्ट पे नुकसान होगा।
एक्सपोर्ट पे नुकसान होगा।
तो अपना पोर्टफोलियो में कितना इंपोर्ट है, कितना एक्सपोर्ट है?
अपने पोर्टफोलियो में एक्सपोर्ट हार्डली है, मोस्टली इंपोर्ट है। अगर आप डायग्नोस्टिक चेन हो लाइक थायरोकेयर और कृष्णा, तो आपका तो पूरा रेवेन्यू इंडिया से आता है। आप इंपोर्ट क्या करते हो? MRI मशीन, CT स्कैनर, रीएजेंट्स, ये सब आप इंपोर्ट करते हो। जब आप इंपोर्ट करते हो, आप किस करेंसी में पे करते हो? आप डॉलर। तो अगर डॉलर का वैल्यू कम हो रहा है, यानी कि रुपी स्ट्रेंथिंग अगेंस्ट द डॉलर, आपको कुछ ना कुछ फायदा ही होगा।
और अगर उल्टा होता है तो भी मैं पैसे बना लूंगा?
नहीं, अगर उल्टा होता है तो वो तो 40 साल से होते आया है और ये पैसे बनाते रहे हैं। सो दैट इज बिल्ट इनटू देयर मॉडल।
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग।
ये तो 40 साल से हो रहा है ना उल्टा, तो रुपी डेप्रिशिएट है।
और जो ब्रांडेड जेनरिक्स जो भी हमारी कंपनीज हैं,
वो भी इंपोर्ट करते हैं। दे इंपोर्ट रॉ मटेरियल, दे इंपोर्ट प्रिपेयर्ड प्रोडक्ट ऑल्सो। सी, ब्रांडेड जेनरिक्स का एक कमाल है ना, दे डोंट नीड टू मैन्युफैक्चर व्हाट दे सेल, दे आर सेलिंग अ ब्रांड, अ कॉन्सेप्ट, दे आर नॉट सेलिंग द प्रोडक्ट। तो प्रोडक्ट तो वो खरीदा हुआ बनाया हुआ खरीदते हैं। जैसे HUL आपको साबुन थोड़ी बेच रहा है, वो आपको डव बेच रहा है,
या
वो आपको लक्स
बनाता तो कोई और है,
बनाता तो कोई और है।
बद्दी में, हिमाचल प्रदेश की फैक्ट्री में।
करेक्ट। तो ये सेम ये ब्रांडेड जेनरिक्स के साथ होता है। बद्दी और हिमाचल प्रदेश से माल आता है,
सारे लोग वहीं से खरीदते हैं।
वहीं से खरीदते हैं। एंड वो मैन्युफैक्चरर्स वही इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल, वो मैन्युफैक्चरर बोलता है भाई तुम 10 पैरासीटामोल टैबलेट बेचता है तो तुम 10 बनाएगा, ये 10 बेचता है तो ये 10 बनाएगा,
मैं बनाता हूँ
मैं बनाता हूँ ना 200 टैबलेट्स, मेरे से ले ले 10 तो बेच। ब्रांड तो तुमको अपना अपना चिपकाना है, लेके बेचो।
बिकॉज यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस ब्रांडेड गेम, do you have any insight? Let's say if a young person is watching who's not interested in making money through stock market,
Sure.
he's interested in
Building a business.
Is there any insight about brand building? Is there any case story, anything that you have heard which can give goosebumps to us?
यार देख, नहीं, गूज़बम्प्स का तो पता नहीं, हंसा सकता हूँ आपको।
ठीक है।
तो okay, so this drug called Viagra,
हाँ,
right? So this drug was being developed by Pfizer. Viagra is Pfizer's product. This was been developed by Pfizer as a cholesterol controlling product when it
Yes.
was in clinical trials. So, and this clinical trial, Pfizer came, they gave the drug to the patients, the scientists, and the next morning the scientists were supposed to check the cholesterol levels, but they didn't, because they noticed one common thread across patients, that all of them were at half mast in the morning. So they decided that let's test for that. Why is that happening across all individuals? And then they realized the drug may or may not lower cholesterol, but definitely cures erectile dysfunction.
yeah.
And that accident became one of the biggest success stories for Pfizer. Viagra has been a blockbuster drug for them. I mean, that's one. But yeah, look, on a more serious note, in India, when you're trying to develop brand, right, the 2-3 things you can do, right? One is most of these companies, what they end up doing is they end up doing some clinical research on the molecules. For instance, I'll give you an example. Fantastic story, JB Chemicals, Rantac. So Rantac is ranitidine. Ranitidine is basically supposed to be taken for gastrointestinal distress. So if you are not feeling well in your stomach, you take ranitidine. But in India today, unfortunately, what has happened is these inhibitors, what do you call them? All these azoles, pantoprazole, rabeprazole, esomeprazole, they are called PP inhibitors or something.
Okay.
Right? So this is basically a certain mechanism of action. I forget the name. So these are all inhibitors. And these drugs were actually invented to act on stomach ulcers.
Okay.
They are very potent drugs. These drugs you take when you actually have an ulcer in your stomach. And what started happening in India and across the globe, doctors started prescribing these azoles for a normal distress, gastrointestinal distress. And then in the US became a class action lawsuit where so in US you have this concept of class action lawsuits.
Yeah.
Where a lot of individuals can join together and complain against a organization or a body. So they were complaining against Pfizer that they have mispromoted a drug to the doctors, where the doctors have started prescribing all these azoles.
Even for a
small stomach issue, whereas it should have been only prescribed for ulcers. And because this drug was so potent, it had a high side effect profile. It was impacting the kidneys of the patients. And there was more than enough research available that the kidneys are actually deteriorating, by the time this class action lawsuit was filed. Now, JB Chemical here picked up that research.
Okay.
JB Pharma from India picked up that research that this is happening. They were the guys who owned Rantac, which is ranitidine, which is not a PP4 inhibitor. It is not a competitor to these azoles. This drug is actually working where you give it for a normal distress, right? So they picked up this research. They compared the side effect profile of a ranitidine, which is a 70-year-old molecule, to these PP4 inhibitors, which are new, more potent, aggressive products. And they said, our product does not impact kidneys at all. For the last 30, 40, 50-year history of the drug, there has been zero complaints on anybody saying that there's any impact on the kidney of the patient. And hence, they didn't only promote to doctors, they created multiple campaigns where they basically showcased that if your doctor is prescribing you these azoles, these PP4 inhibitors, and if you just have a stomach ache, say no, and take this Rantac.
Hey, JB is Jubilant?
No, JB Pharma is different.
You don't own this, right?
We own it. It's called JB Pharma, but it's a small weight in the portfolio, may not be visible on the top 10. So they promoted Rantac in that fashion. So I think when KKR bought JB, I think Rantac was a 50-60 crore per annum drug for them. Today I think it's north of 200 crores.
So आप देखते हो KKR क्या acquire कर रहे हैं next?
नहीं, मुझे नहीं पता क्या acquire करेगा next. I'm just saying कि it's a good case study in how you ethically promote a brand. When I say ethical promotion, the other way of building a brand is to just give a lot of
Incentives to the doctors.
Incentives to
that happens.
The prescribers. But this is ethical promotion. You have used a scientific research, you have created research. Another way is how IPCA created Zerodol. Zerodol is aceclofenac. It is a prodrug of diclofenac. Now, diclofenac is an NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, like naproxen, I told you, naproxen. So, diclofenac bhi wahi hai. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So, diclofenac mein problem kya hai? Diclofenac has a high side effect profile, but it is very effective. IPCA did some research. They created aceclofenac. Aceclofenac is a prodrug. So, it is in the process of developing diclofenac comes aceclofenac. Then if you further process it, it becomes diclofenac.
You owned IPCA for up to 10% at DSP, right? Yeah.
We still own IPCA, a small percentage, but we own. So they created that aceclofenac, and then they compared aceclofenac and diclofenac, and they said aceclofenac has the same efficacy as diclofenac, but it has much lower side effect profile because it is a prodrug. So it has not been more processed to become diclofenac. It has been less processed. And that caught on. So now many doctors who were earlier prescribing diclofenac have started prescribing aceclofenac. And that just took IPCA stock and the brand through the roof. Today Zerodol is, I think, 400-500 crores mother brand.
Sir, आपने Wockhardt पे भी बहुत पैसे बनाए क्या? Wockhardt was a very interesting story, right?
Wockhardt is one story where I have lost money.
Okay.
It was one of my mistakes.
How? What was the mistake? What can we learn from that mistake?
Yes. So, great question. So, Wockhardt, let's say, had 3 businesses.
Yeah.
One was their India business, the cash growing, branded, no-brainer kind of business. The other was the US FDA wala business, jahan wo commodity, high capital intensity, but they were doing good at that point in time, as in they had good products in the market. And third is their innovation R&D business, where there was no revenue, but they're doing good clinical work. So hopefully someday some revenue comes out of it. Now, when we looked at Wockhardt, their US business had gone to the dumps. So US FDA had flagged them off as poor quality, poor standard, never sell to us, we don't trust you, all that had happened. The stock had fallen, I think, all the way from 2,000 rupees to 500-600 rupees. And at that point, we stepped in. We thought, okay, let us do our work again. So the innovator arm, he's burning so much cash. Let's assume someday he will be able to recover whatever he has invested. So book value.
Yeah.
Book value. So let's take the book value of the innovator arm. Let's not give him any merit that he'll be able to make money on it. But let's not penalize him for doing some innovation R&D.
Okay.
So let's give him book value for that.
जब बिजनेस के अलग अलग पार्ट होते हैं तो उस पर्टिकुलर पार्ट का पीबी निकालना इजी होता है, वो सेग्रीगेटेड होता है कंपनी में?
Depend करता है. Some companies report the segmental reporting, some companies don't do it.
So if the company is not doing that, then how?
We do it segmentally. We take a guess.
Okay.
We take a guess because we know competitor businesses.
Done.
So we know इतना percentage इतने इसमें लगा रहेगा. वो हमारा mathematical calculation है for peer average करके. So we realize कि चल innovator arm को book value देते हैं. Generic business जो अभी चला रहा है, this is huge loss making business, because sales have stopped, compliance costs have gone up. So imagine दो तरफ से फटका पड़ता है. When your sales drops, so your cash inflow reduces, and two, your costs go up because your compliance cost has gone up. So your profit just completely gets destroyed. So this was a huge loss making business. And the India business was the beautiful sort of cash generating business still, because USFDA की warning से India business को कोई impact नहीं आता. So at this point we said कि चल ये लॉस मेकिंग बिजनेस है और ये इनोवेटर में कैश बर्न कर रहा है, इनोवेटर को बुक वैल्यू पे लेते हैं. ये लॉस मेकिंग में मान ले कि ये 2-3 साल तक अगर नहीं टर्न अराउंड करेगा तो बेच देगा. दैट वाज आवर अजम्पशन एंड हेंस वी वैल्यूड दिस आल्सो एट बुक वैल्यू. एंड देन द इंडिया बिजनेस वी वैल्यूड एज एन ऑनगोइंग कंसर्न, राइट. तो लेट्स से उस टाइम अगर वॉकहार्ट का स्टॉक प्राइस 500 रुपए था तो हमारा फेयर वैल्यू 900 रुपए आ रहा था. तो वी सेड तो बस मस्त है एंड डाउनसाइड को ज्यादा दिख नहीं रहा है, तो लेट्स बाय. What happened, unfortunately, was that Wockhardt, to keep its US business alive, started selling part of their India business. They sold those brands to their competitors. They sold some brands to Dr. Reddy, and they sold something else to someone else. And they monetized the India ka brand. They sold the brand to someone. They got one-time cash. And this one-time cash, they again reinvested in the US business. So they were throwing good money after bad money, which to my mind was a complete capital misallocation.
And what was their understanding of doing so?
Longer term. So they thought that once we overcome this USFDA challenge, we'll be able to make money. So we will not give up on this business. 2 years was not enough to turn around the business. But let's say 10 years, if we invest more, we modernize the facility, we file more critical products, FDA will be sort of okay with us, and then we'll make money again. So their understanding was, let's take a 10-year view or whatever, let's try to turn around the ship even if it requires more effort on our side. I, as an investor, I looked at it as a completely capital misallocating. You're selling a cash cow for a business which is dirty in the sense that it's already loss making and it's highly competitive, it's commodity. So I exited the stock at a loss.
Which again then
things changed. Why? Because they took 10 years for them to change it. So the story I'm telling you is 2014. Oh, we are in 25. So not 14, 16. हाँ, तो we are in 25. तो 8-9 साल लग गए उसको. मेरा 8-9 साल का टाइम वैल्यू ऑफ मनी बच गया ना. That is not visible in this story.
Yeah.
उस 8-9 साल में मैंने किसी और स्टॉक में पैसा डाल के पैसा 3x 4x हो गया. तो उस हिसाब से तो लॉस अभी भी मेरे लिए Wockhardt is a good
Interesting.
Right.
Have you heard about this? So because you mentioned Dr. Reddy, I hosted Dr. G.V. Prasad.
अच्छा.
So, but publish nahi kara, and I hosted in Bangalore their facility, and he mentioned that around $200 billion of drugs are falling off the patent cliff by 2030, something around that number.
Yeah.
अब अगर मुझे ये पता है,
is accurate.
तो how do I figure out which horse to bet on? Who will be the right person? Who will be the right beneficiary of this patent cliff of $200 billion?
How do I explain this?
Are you betting on this theme?
No.
Why?
Clear, commodity, oversupply. See, the last patent cliff was in CY13, CY14, 2013.
Yes.
At that time, let's say there were 10 to 15 Indian pharma companies that were in the race to file for these products and bring their generic first. Today, there must be at least 40 to 50 pharma companies doing that in India. And then there is external competition. So if for a given apple, there are 10 suitors versus there are 50 suitors, the chances of anyone getting a decent pie is negligible. That's the whole point. The dollar value doesn't matter. It is irrelevant. What is relevant is how many people go after it. Right?
Supply side.
Supply. So in pharma, in US pharma specifically, because $200 billion is the US number, US patent expiry number, demand grows at 1.5%. That cannot drive your value.
Yeah.
What will drive value if supply shrinks by 10%? Or is supply going up by 10%? That will either drive or destroy your value.
और अगर ऊपर चलेगी तो फिर डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगा.
10 साल से तो ऊपर ही जा रहा है.
Yeah. And now if you see that this drug, this GLP, semaglutide, right?
हाँ,
तो
GLP.
अब now you see कि यार India is the diabetic capital.
हाँ.
ये यहाँ पर आएगा.
Correct.
तो people will have to get it. Then also you want.
No, because I don't know which horse to bet on. 25 लोग लॉन्च करेंगे GLP-1. Not all 25. So any drug market you look at India, paracetamol for instance, we spoke of Dolo, Crocin, Calpol. ये 3 ब्रांड मिलके 40-50% मार्केट है. You know how many brands in paracetamol exist? 500-600 ब्रांड है. 500-600 में से टॉप 3 मिलके 30-40% ऑफ द मार्केट है.
Very interesting.
तो it's a kind of very concentrated market at the top.
मैं इसको और डीप में जाके सोचूं. मैं सोचूं कि यार GLP को एक फॉर्मेट है अपन जो इंजेक्टेबल फॉर्मेट.
Yes.
उसकी एक कंपनी है.
हाँ.
जिसने फिगर आउट करा है कि मैं ये इंजेक्शन बना सकता हूँ. शेली इंजीनियरिंग. और ये मैं विदाउट इन्फ्रिंजिंग द पेटेंट ऑफ LIL एंड अदर बना सकता हूँ.
ठीक है.
Can I bet on that?
At the right valuation, yes.
But right now does it fall under your?
In my framework, no, it doesn't. It doesn't qualify for an investment given the valuation it is at.
But apart from that, is it a good company?
Shelley is a great company. Shelley is an engineering company.
Yeah.
It is not a pharma company. They are good at making pens. They can't make the drug.
Yes.
Right. So they're making the pens in which the drug will come. There is no doubt that they are doing a good job at it. How much price are they able to realize out of the pen? Now, if you are, let's say, a pharma company which is launching the GLP-1, what is the tougher part of your job? Creating the drug or creating the pen?
Drug. Yeah.
So how much money will you let the pen maker make?
चूस लूंगा मैं उसको, कमाने नहीं दूंगा. मतलब yeah, interesting. So you won't buy on that.
At the right valuation, I could have bought on that.
But why didn't you invest in Shelley in the right way? Because the stock has shown a decent.
Because मुझे ये clear नहीं था कि उनके पास एक patent non-infringing design है कि नहीं है. That I came to know later after the stock ran up. I came to know later कि उनके पास एक non-infringing design है पेन का. अगर वो पेन का infringing design होता तो वो पैसा बना ही नहीं सकता था. वो प्रोडक्ट ही नहीं लॉन्च कर सकता.
But अगर आपको ये पहले पता होता तो you would.
I may have evaluated it.
Very interesting. सबसे important segment. इसके बाद हम rapid fire करेंगे.
Sure.
But I really wanted to learn about this. एक महापुरुष थे सर. आप उन महापुरुष को जानते हैं. उन्होंने बोला था कि PNL is a bride with a 2-hour makeup and the cash flow is the girl when she has woken up in the morning. ये कौन महापुरुष थे सर?
नहीं, ये हमारे बॉस थे. उनका नाम नहीं लेने वाला मैं. He is one of the very senior investment professionals of our industry. Having said that, what he meant was what I told you in a different language, that the PNL is essentially vanity. The balance sheet is sanity and the cash flow is the reality.
You also mentioned that in the recent years, you have changed your way from P&L, balance sheet and ended up at cash flow at the last, and you often say to your analysts that सबसे पहले cash flow देखो.
Yes.
Can we do a small activity? Can I open any company and let's understand कि पहले cash flow से कैसे देखते हैं and how do you move it?
चल ठीक है. You have screener?
I have screener.
So just open screener.
Which is your favorite tool?
I use screener. I mean वैसे तो बहुत सारे हैं.
Oh sorry.
Most used I think is screener. Yeah. So let's enter a company name called HCG, our largest holding.
I follow it. Yeah.
And let's open another tab of screener and open a company called Shalby Hospital. So if I look at Shalby, right, what do you see in the first?
This is healthcare.
Healthcare Global. Sorry, yeah. So if I look at Healthcare Global, what do you see in the first screen? 10,000 crores market cap.
Yeah.
Stock P of 276 times, right? And our ROE, ROC of whatever single.
Normal investor इसको देख के घबरा जाएगा शायद.
वो घबरा जाएगा, वो आगे जाएगा ही नहीं. We will not go anywhere in future आगे. So if you look at the PE chart of the stock, this is what it looks like. Right? So PNL is telling you, boss, horribly expensive stock, don't even come close, goodbye, right? Now let's look at the cash flow of the company. So 10,000 crore market cap company, cash flow is 317 crores. So mota 30-35 times cash is what you are paying to buy the company. And this is the annual cash flow. And look at the trend of the cash flow. And then look at the trend of the profit. So 51, 60, 70, 90, 100, 130, 120, 220, 250, 280, 300.
Very good.
Secular straight line growth almost linear. Despite this period having COVID.
Yeah.
Despite that, right? Look at the working capital negative, which means that every time EBITDA grows by 100, cash flow will grow by 120 because the working capital gives money rather than consuming money. So you saw the trend in the operating cash flow, right? Let's see the trend in the profit. Minus 32, plus 5, plus 2, plus 23, 17, minus 31, minus 125, minus 220, plus 39, plus 18, plus 41, plus 49, plus 41. Are you looking at the same company or different company?
Same company.
but the numbers don't suggest the same
Yeah.
at all, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at the P&L, you're looking at a company not even worth your time. If you look at the cash flow, you're intrigued. What is this business model
पैसा कहाँ से लेके आ रहे हो?
that doesn't change? But then the key question is, what is more important for the stock? Is it the profit after tax or is it the cash flow?
Cash flow should be.
Should be.
Yeah. Definition में भी वही आता है.
Definition will be the
Future-
first line in your finance book. It is that the value of any asset is the present value of future
Cash flow.
cash flow.
Not profit.
PAT. Not PAT. So if the cash flow is secular, growing linearly, definitely the business is good. Why the P&L does this profit loss, we can investigate and figure out later. But the fact is that the cash flow is solid and good. Hence this PE ratio is bullshit. Doesn't stand for anything.
No value.
Same for the ROC and ROE because they come from the earnings only. They are a P&L number, no?
Yes. So if then ROE and ROC I'm not looking at, what I'm looking at?
CROCI, cash return on cash invested.
Can we see that?
No, Screener doesn't have it. We calculate that. So CROCI, what do we look at? We look at operating cash flow. That's the cash return. Right?
Yeah.
Then we look at cash invested. What is cash invested? It is capital employed, but the cash capital employed. So if there is any goodwill in this balance sheet, it won't come. So SCG has very minor goodwill, not much, but that will not come there because that is not invested cash. So you look at cash return on cash invested, then SCG is actually 12-13% return business rather than the 5 or 8% that your ROE or ROC shows. So the ROE, ROC
Shows
showing
6-7, I think.
5 to 8%, right?
8 and 5.
ये actually 12-13% है if you look at CROCI. Now ये 5-8 क्यों? क्योंकि P&L के numbers है ना, numerator is P&L.
Yeah.
So that is one. So this stock, now if you look at EV/EBITDA also, because that's the more popular ratio that people look at for hospitals. So today the EV/EBITDA will look like 27 times, 26 times, right? Okay? And the stock seems pretty fairly priced on EV/EBITDA.
Right.
Now let's take Shalby. Now hundreds of people asked me, again a hospital.
Okay.
Hundreds of people asked me, if you can own SCG, you should definitely own Shalby.
Okay.
Right? So I said, okay, why? Why do you say that? So PE पे तो Shalby तुमको 50 टाइम पे दिख रहा है, 60 टाइम पे.
हाँ.
वो 250 पे था. नो ब्रेनर.
आदमी एक नॉर्मल रिटेल इन्वेस्टर विल से कि यार ये ऑफ कोर्स मैं ये
सस्ता है, बहुत सस्ता है. EV/EBITDA भी देख लेते हैं 20 टाइम्स.
या
वो 27-28 पे था. बहुत सस्ता है.
लेट्स गो टू कैश फ्लो. ये पैसा ये क्यों नहीं बना पा रहे पैसा? डिड यू आस्क द सेकंड ऑर्डर क्वेश्चन? व्हाई? व्हाट्स द आंसर?
वर्किंग कैपिटल देखो, नीचे देखो नंबर्स. SCG का वर्किंग कैपिटल नेगेटिव
इट्स
था.
पॉजिटिव. या
Positive, but to what extent?
opposite extent, completely different. 70, 74, 75. What's the wrong that these people are doing?
He bought an implant business. See, he's a hospital that specializes in orthopedics. In orthopedics, there's a lot of hip replacement, knee replacement. So you have to buy the implants. He went to US and bought an implant business because he was buying implants from that business and he thought it would be a great business to buy. Because anyways, I am buying from them, so I am paying them margins. So why should I not buy their business and keep the margins in-house? That was the thought. After he bought the business, I don't know what went wrong with the business. Look at the inventory and the debtor, it's gone berserk. And can you imagine if your payable days, so people don't know how to read these numbers. If your payable days at some point reach 744, it implies that on an average,
2 साल बाद पैसा है.
on an average, तुमने अपने vendor को 2 साल तक पैसा नहीं पे किया. But that's on an average, which means there are vendors you haven't paid for 3.5-4 years
Also,
at this point. If you have not paid a vendor for 3.5-4 years, he can go to NCLT any day and file a bankruptcy lawsuit against you. They liquidate this guy.
give me my money back.
Give me my money. But stock तो सस्ता था ना, hospital तो ये भी है.
Screener को देख के, is there any forensic understanding that you can make? No.
No. So how we do forensics is essentially we look at the subsegment of a given company. For instance, this is a hospital subsegment. So we will look at 30-40 hospitals that are listed, right? For each of those hospitals, we'll have multiple numerical boxes. One numerical box will be working capital. Now within working capital, we'll compare their debtor days, we'll compare their inventory days, we'll compare their payable days and their cash conversion cycle. And then we'll try to figure out who is the most efficient, who is the least efficient. Question the guys on who is least efficient as to, like, Shelby, why are you so less efficient? But we'll also question the guy who's most efficient as to why are you so efficient? What makes you so efficient? In that answer, you get the moat of the business. In that answer, he'll tell you that this is why I'm able to squeeze my vendor, this is why I'm able to squeeze my inventory, this is why I don't need to keep.
और वो बता देते प्रमोटर बहुत जल्दी.
क्यों नहीं बताएगा उसको? आप किसी को ऐसा पूछ रहे हो कि आप अच्छे क्यों हो?
हाँ, तो वो बहुत अच्छे से बताएगा.
आप इस पॉडकास्ट में क्या कर रहे हो? आप ये पूछ रहे हो ना, तो मैं आपको सब बता रहा हूँ. Same thing that those guys will do with me. They will tell me what in behind closed doors. They will also tell you why is their competitor not as efficient. They never say that in public, but they'll say that behind closed doors. They'll tell you why his competitor is so less efficient. What is he doing wrong? They exchange talent every year, yeah.
Of course.
Half of these companies
So they prey on
people.
Yeah.
Who have worked for some other company, right? So they exchange talent. They know what each other are doing, and they know the strengths and weaknesses of each other. That is how these conversations begin. So essentially, cash flow reality है. Now, अगर मैं Shelby का stock लेके बैठा होता 5 साल तक, there's barely any return. SCG 6x, 7x.
बिकॉज हमने एचसीजी की इतनी सारी बात करी, एचसीजी किस प्राइस पॉइंट पे जाएगा? कैन यू टेल मी फ्रॉम दिस कि यार इस प्राइस पे जाने के बाद this will probably break my valuation threshold,
Yeah.
and I will look to sell this business.
So I told you that one, the right metric to look at least in my opinion, is EV to OCF.
Right.
And not EV EBITDA or not anything else. So SCG's EV to OCF today is 30.
I think this is Shelby. No, this is HCG.
हाँ. So in my opinion, today SCG is at 35 times or 33 times EV to OCF. And I told you that in my view, multi-specialty hospital should be cheaper.
Right.
Then let's say
Max.
a super specialty. So Max Healthcare is 1,20,000 crore.
Yeah.
Cash flow is 1,500 crores. So 90 times.
90. Huh.
95, 90 times cash. That guy is 33 times cash. So the day SCG becomes 100 times cash.
You'll sell it.
But by that time, I will be another 6x from here, no? Because the cash flow will grow and the multiple will grow.
सर ये जो मार्केट रिकग्नाइज करता है, री-रेटिंग करता है, आई एम कॉशियस ऑफ अ टाइम, जस्ट दिस इज लास्ट टाइम, तो री-रेटिंग में यू प्ले कि यार री-रेटिंग करेगा और दोनों चीजें होंगी. इज देयर अ वे टू प्रेडिक्ट दैट री-रेटिंग?
नहीं. There is a way to predict the earning trajectory. Re-rating will happen when it has to happen.
Okay.
Re-rating is what?
It's a function of your fundamental
Earnings.
change. Earnings, yeah.
Earning growth अच्छी आ रही है, fundamentals improve हो रहे हैं, re-rating will happen. Re-rating is also a function of somebody else saying that he is willing to buy at a higher multiple than you were willing to buy. That is also re-rating.
Is there any other insightful question that you ask promoter, और वो promoter जैसे आप वो सुनते हो, he gives out more things?
नहीं. So to any, see, promoters are very, very smart. They have built a business. We are simply analyzing what they have done. So when I approach them in all honesty, and there is no tricks.
Yeah, of
honestly.
course.
So my simple question to them is that, look, I can become a part of your shareholder list, but I need to know certain things before I do. None of this is UPSI. It's all publicly available information. I just need to understand your business model better. How do you do business? Why do you get business? Why doesn't the next guy get business? Right? And why does the same customer come to you time and again? And how will you be more profitable than you are today? Can you be more profitable than you are today in terms of margins and return on equity? And then in those answers, there are cost questions, obviously. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. Also, one thing, very interesting thing, which we focus a lot on, and I think many people don't, is how is the top management incentivized? Because see, every individual will work towards his incentive. That's the nature
human
of the
psychology.
world. Human psychology. So that is why, these PE companies, they give ESOPs by the bundle to the top managers, because that aligns the interest of the top manager with the interest of the PE fund. So we asked them. So for example, I will not name any companies here. One of the companies I met about 6-7 years back, when I met his CEO, I asked him, how does the board decide your bonus? So he said, my bonus is decided by revenue growth. So a year when I generate 8% revenue growth, my bonus is X. A year when I can generate 12% revenue growth, my bonus is 2X. 16% revenue growth, my bonus is 3X. I said, okay. To me, that was a very inferior way for the board to evaluate the gentleman.
Why?
And so that business today, the revenue has actually grown. The margin has fallen to half. So their profit hasn't moved. But the gentleman was incentivized to increase revenue. He sacrificed your margins. to get his bonus.
वहाँ पर नहीं था ना. It was not. Yeah, very interesting.
So he sacrificed his margins to get his bonus.
So then, what's the right way? How do you judge?
Cash flow. If your objective is shareholder maximization, shareholder wealth maximization, then shareholder makes more money when your cash flow goes up, because that is what an asset is supposed to do. It's supposed to give you cash flow.
And is there this future cash flow की जो हम बात करते हैं?
Yes.
And as you mentioned that आपको anticipate करना है. Is there any insight around predicting that future, around predicting that about anticipating the future earning?
यानी मैनेजमेंट से बात होती है तो मैनेजमेंट ऑब्वियसली गिव गाइडेंस समटाइम्स, राइट, कि मैं तो
इतना
ये कर दूंगा वो कर दूंगा एंड ऑल दैट. वी टेक इट विद अ पिंच ऑफ सॉल्ट यार, बिकॉज वो तो बायस्ड है ना. ही रन्स ओनली वन कंपनी, सो ही इज बायस्ड and he's sometimes even emotionally invested because he has been working on an initiative for 3, 5, 10 years. So we obviously listen to what they're saying, but we don't take it at face value. We do our own work to see if that's even possible to achieve.
Got it. लास्ट क्वेश्चन, इसके बाद हम रैपिड फायर करेंगे और फिर खत्म हो जाएगा. आपने गुड कैपिटल एलोकेशन की बात करी थी. व्हाट सेपरेट्स, मतलब हाउ गिव मी एन एग्जांपल ऑफ गुड कैपिटल एलोकेशन and what separates a good capital allocator to a bad one?
So good capital allocator will make investment decisions that give him more than the cost of capital. So for instance, if my cost of capital is 15%, I will make only those investments where I can at least make 16, 17, 18% or more from the invested capital.
ये तो सबको समझ में आता है,
right?
हाँ.
नहीं, सबको समझ में नहीं आता है. I mean, that is the irony of the life. So today, if you look at, I don't want to name companies. So there is a pharma company, 10 years back, ROE was 34%. Today, ROE is 13%. Because of the investments that they have made. Right? Now, it's not that they did not know that these investments were not going to be lower ROE investments. It's just that had they not made those investments, they would have had to pay that money out as dividends. And the promoter of that company is so rich that he would have gotten 60% of the dividends. He's a 60% shareholder. And he had a problem of what to do with that money. He owns like 2 halves of 2 cities. And he doesn't want to own more real estate. He has a business which is values in lakhs of crores. And he says, I don't want the dividend. So I would rather build scale, sacrificing ROE, than give out that money to shareholders, admitting that I have nowhere else to invest this capital profitably. So you take the capital back. So it's not that simple. To keep investing money at more than 15% ROE is not a joke.
Scale becomes a problem.
Scale becomes a problem, and some promoters aspire more for scale, less for ROE. They are more about how much. So I'm a $10 billion company.
You get,
you get that kick, right? So this company, last 10 years stock price return is 30%, point to point. 10 years ago, the stock price was 1200. Today, I think 1500, 1600. Right? Because they misallocated capital. The other company, which always deployed at more than 15%, their stock price 10 years ago was 500. Today is 3700.
समझ में आ गया. Good capital allocation के लिए मुझे management का thinking process समझना पड़ेगा. How do you do that?
We ask them कि आपने cash generate किया current business से. Now, what will make you invest this capital in a given initiative? What is it that you look at? Do you look at payback? Do you look at IRR? Do you look at ROE? If you look at ROE, how do you calculate ROE? Right? वो भी बता दो. तो समझते हैं. And more than that, उनका incentive बता देता है कि वो कैसे सोचेगा. If the incentive is going to be top line, वो तो कोई सा भी प्रोजेक्ट करेगा जो उसको टॉप लाइन दे दे बस. मार्जिन कुछ भी हो. करेक्ट. अगर इंसेंटिव कैश फ्लो है,
इट्स अ थिंग टू
डिफरेंट बिजनेस.
बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस हैं, लेकिन इट्स अ लॉन्ग लाइफ. विल लर्न फ्रॉम यू अगेन.
करेक्ट.
सो लेट्स गो फॉर द रैपिड फायर थिंग. हु इज योर फेवरेट फंड मैनेजर?
My favorite fund manager, Anup Maheshwari, without a doubt. He was my mentor at DSP. I learned a lot from him, and I still admire him. I think he's a great guy.
What is one thing or a secret that you would never say in a public?
I would have said no.
If there has to be, so innovators नहीं है इंडिया में, right?
नहीं.
But if you were to bet on a company, the management or anyone, जो आपको लगता है यार कोई बनाएगा innovative drug तो ये कंपनी बना सकती है, it has potential.
I would say Glenmark. Glenmark Pharma. I was a former employee.
First, yeah. Why do you say that?
Just the passion that Glenn has for innovation.
Saldana Services is in Bombay?
Yes, their office is here in Andheri.
Very interesting. Have you met him?
Yeah, I used to directly report to him.
Oh, very interesting. Is there any insight that you have learned from the man?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. He's a man of passion, clearly, right? So, again, keeping the investor lens aside, I think Glenn Saldana is a man of passion, and he has that passion that he wants to become the first innovator based out of India. He wants to have the first indigenously developed and researched novel molecule in the world. And I think he'll do it because he has been at it for 20 years. He's not gotten it there yet. But the guy has fire.
आपने जो फेवरेट फंड मैनेजर बताया वो इंडिया का बताया, एक ग्लोबल भी बताओ.
यार मैं ग्लोबल फंड मैनेजर को इतना फॉलो नहीं करता, बट वन फंड मैनेजर, एंड आई थिंक आई कैन कॉल हिम अ फंड मैनेजर दैट आई रियली अडोर, इज मॉर्गन हाउस.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. अनूप सर को बहुत सारे, हालांकि ही रियरली गिव्स इंटरव्यू. आई वॉच्ड हिज रीसेंट इंटरव्यू दैट ही डिड विद सोनिया. ही इज अ वेल नोन नेम.
Yes.
टेल अस अबाउट एन इन्वेस्टर who is undiscovered to the public eye. He's a young person, but you believe he will be a great investor.
So I had this colleague in DSP. His name is Kaushal Maru. He was the auto and cement analyst at DSP. He left DSP and he started managing his own wealth. Now he's joint hand with two of his dear friends, and they have opened a small money management outfit. I think Kaushal is someone with a very level-headed, very level-headed human being and good analytical skills. I think that's a great mix. So I think Kaushal will do really well.
आप अपना फंड कब शुरू करोगे? Honest answer. I don't want a diplomatically correct answer.
Nah, fair. Look, to my mind, the ability to start your own fund begins when you have about 15-20 crore rupees to burn in OPEX.
Okay.
Because as I told you, the AMC business takes 5, 6, 7 years to break even. And the OPEX in those 5, 6, 7 years comes to broadly 15 crore, let's say. So जिस दिन मेरे पास 15 crore हो जाएंगे burn करने,
आपके पास होंगे यार.
sorely mistaken. I wish it was the case, but nonetheless, the point I'm making is that I have a money in my mind that this is the corpus I need for my wife and my kids to have a good life.
Okay.
Once that is done, then I need 15 CR to burn. Once that is done,
कितना टाइम लगेगा उसमें?
10 to 15 years, depending on how my capital.
तब तक InCred जिंदाबाद.
तब तक सब जिंदाबाद.
ठीक है. Is there, if you were to predict one thing about future, outside, inside health tech, about India, outside world, what is that one thing that you would predict?
We'll be spending much more on health than we are spending today. Much, much more.
Whether the rich people will spend on longevity or the middle class will spend on preventive healthcare, or the poor will spend on their
survival.
Survival.
But everybody will be spending significantly more on healthcare.
What is one thing you often find yourself telling to the young investors out there, the analyst?
So I tell them to learn how to read financial statements. Start from cash flow, go to the P&L later. Number one. Number two, I tell them, don't be in a rush. People try to often correlate speed with efficiency. They're different things. Speed is just getting the job done, and efficiency and effectiveness are to get it done properly. So I push them to be more effective and efficient. I do not push them for speed today. I say speed will come because end of the day it's slightly repetitive in nature. So you keep doing the good work time and again, you become more efficient at it. So efficiency and effectiveness, let's put them in two different buckets. Speed is basically same as efficiency, and effectiveness is how good is your work. So I push them a lot on the effectiveness side, and I tell them efficiency will come with time. Don't bother about it.
मुझे ब्राजील और अर्जेंटीना जाना है. What was must thing to do there?
यार ब्राजील या अर्जेंटीना जाओगे तो you must see a local football match. You will see the passion those people have.
My God,
that sport is crazy, right? So एक को soccer जरूर देखना. Second, Brazil जाओगे तो definitely go to Rio de Janeiro, go to the Copacabana, the Ipanema, the two beaches. They're like the Baga and Anjuna of Goa, next to each other, and beautiful beaches, beautiful people. They live life to the core. They work hard, they party harder. And food might be a struggle if you're a vegetarian. Brazilians mostly depend on meat.
Oops.
But you will have fish, you'll have rice, and you'll have pizza and all that.
Okay.
Sandwiches, which will help you to survive. But food options will be limited. Vegetarian food.
अपन ने सर इंडिया की बहुत सारी हेल्थ केयर की बात करी थी. अगर ग्लोबल कोई ऐसी कंपनी है दैट यू नो that you are very passionate about, that you are very bullish about?
Absolutely. So there's this company called Intuitive Surgical. So by the way,
कल 5% उसका स्टॉक बढ़ा था.
Yeah, so Intuitive, they make the Da Vinci robots. So आज आप देखोगे इंडिया क्या globally robotic surgeries are going up. Why are they going up? For two primary reasons. Number one, in a robotic surgery, the recovery period is faster. So what do I mean by that? एक तो होता है laparoscopy. Laparoscopy में क्या होता है? So the doctor takes two straight arms and he sort of makes that 4 holes in your body, and he will use those arms through these 4 holes to do whatever is doing inside with a camera plunged inside. वो कैमरा दिखाएगा क्या हो रहा है और वो डॉक्टर इन आर्म से करेगा. So that is what a laparoscopy is. Now that has become slightly outdated because of Da Vinci. Now what is Da Vinci does? Da Vinci does only 2 holes. One for the some nowadays so in fact one hole robot bhi aa gaya. It does only one hole. That arm will have a camera and an arm which is 360-degree maneuverable.
Wow.
So you don't need to have a second hole. So that one arm will show you what is happening and will do what is to be done and will come out with the procedure done. Now the difference between having 4 holes in your body versus 1 hole in your body,
of course,
is the recovery period.
Yeah.
So 4 holes take that much time to recover. So economic productivity of the individual resumes in day 3 after a robotic surgery. In laparoscopy, it might take day 6, day 7, day 10.
Which is a significant delta.
Significant delta. So that extra that you pay for robotic is much more than justified.
अब तो शायद स्टॉक को रिकॉग्नाइज कर लिया है लोगों ने.
हाँ. When I invested it in DSP in 2018, I think. A very unknown story, very little known story. अभी तो हाँ, it has been fairly recognized. फिर एक और कंपनी जो I like internationally, a company called IDEX Labs. They make diagnostic equipment for veterinary diagnostic tests.
Veterinary to animals. Right? Yeah.
So that's again a very differentiated market. IDEX is again just like Intuitive is leaps and bounds ahead of its competition in this area. IDEX is leaps and bounds ahead of their competition. And again, veterinary, the view on veterinary is that as fertility rates are going down globally and people don't want to have kids, even if they're fertile, veterinary will be a fast expanding market.
Yeah, there is a word called DINQUED.
Yeah.
Double income, no kids.
No kids, right? And with pets.
Yeah, with pet. So fastest growing category in India.
Fastest growing category in India also, right? And globally be fastest growing. And when these guys, when they have a pet, that pet is literally their child.
Boss,
right?
I got to Bombay. Bombay is a cat city.
Right.
Went to a friend. The cat got COVID. ठीक है. The cat got then cancer. But क्या हुआ उस cat को? 7.5-8 लाख रुपए उन्होंने cat पे वो करे. So मतलब I was no, it was really good to see that the human is so worried
like
about
that.
their Shark Tank. If you see,
right,
Shark Tank की history में the biggest thing that has made the highest return is this cat test. Cat की कोई बीमारी को वो करता है. Very very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
बट इन दोनों कंपनी में आप फंड से इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर सकते, राइट?
नहीं.
सो यू
आर पीएमएस एआईएफ मैंडेट इज प्योरली इंडियन लिस्टेड इक्विटीज.
वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. बट ये दोनों कंपनी फॉल इन योर वैल्यूएशन थ्रेशोल्ड.
नहीं. Intuitive today is more expensive than I would like it to be. IDEX falls. IDEX is still fairly.
Any other global company that you are that you just love? Unhidden story right now. Undiscovered.
नहीं, undiscovered. Regeneron, I like at this valuation, but it's not an undiscovered story.
Okay.
The stock has fallen for wrong reasons, which is why it's a good buy today, Regeneron. But I don't think it's an undiscovered story. So undiscovered stories actually, because my focus is also the Indian market, I don't get that much time to read globally. So undiscovered stories मेरे पास अभी नहीं है. But these are the discovered but still value picks.
These are rapid fire. Last 3-4 things very quickly.
Go for it.
The promoter that you have learned from most.
Godaji from IPCA, Premchand Goda.
Your favorite investing tool?
Tool, you mean what?
कुछ भी बता दो जो रिटेल इन्वेस्टर ही जानता.
Enterprise value to operating cash flow is a valuation metric.
Okay, that is good. Tell us about a tool also.
So tool basically, अगर आप tool मतलब database सोच रहे हो.
Tool or knowledge resource.
Knowledge resource.
That you as a fund manager.
My LinkedIn network. I mean, you should just talk to people if you want to invest, and talk to people in that industry and industries which are either customers or vendors of that industry. I think many people think of investing as a desk job. I would harshly disagree with them. I would say 50% of investing is talking to people. and talking to people from various industries.
I was just curious to know that it's just learning and understanding AI also. Is there a way that you have thought internally how can you train your framework on AI?
यार वो हम लोग कर रहे हैं यूज एआई में, बट ऑनेस्टली अभी हम लोग अपना फ्रेमवर्क एआई पे नहीं डाल रहे. वी आर यूजिंग एआई टू डू द ग्रंट वर्क, annual report analysis, data, Excel sheet modeling. So we are trying to use AI in these areas. The grunt work that the analysts were supposed to do, they are trying to sort of put it on AI so that they can do the more productive work rather than the grunt work.
But do you think it would be an interesting proposition?
It could be.
I went to US. I was in New York. I met the guy this guy was the managing partner of Stanley Druckenmiller.
Okay.
He's an Indian. Started his own startup. He $4-5 billion का करते हैं. So he has started doing this, and I see nobody in India doing this. और उन्होंने पूरी की चीज को automate कर रखा है. उन्होंने पूरा जो everything that he understands.
Right.
He has created a digital twin. कि क्या क्या sources आते हैं, कहाँ से मुझे पता चलता है, मैं क्या क्या पहले देखता हूँ, मेरा क्या क्या process है, मेरा क्या क्या thinking system है. That training AI. Now he's believing that after some time this will be a sparring partner which will be much better than ChatGPT and stuff.
So look, as I said, at least in my opinion, investing is part AI, part art and part science. I can always put the science on AI. That's where the AI will be.
But the art is the very interesting. So जैसे आप healthcare industry को समझते हो, who would you rate? I know you are one of the best person too, and that really depicts in your. But who do you think healthcare industry में और भी आपसे ज़्यादा अच्छा कौन समझता है? Who are your peers who really understands healthcare industry?
You want in the fund management community or analyst community or anybody?
Anybody.
Prashant Godha, sir. So Premchand Godha, Prashant Godha. IPCA guys. I think they understand the healthcare landscape globally extremely well.
Very interesting.
And see, landscape सब समझते होंगे, दूसरे promoters भी समझते होंगे. पैसा कहाँ बन सकता है वो identify करने की ability.
वो उनमें.
I mean, in my view, with all due
and
respect.
are they doing that with IPCA also?
Obviously.
But you own very less of IPCA.
I own very less because I don't find the valuation right. But the fact that despite I don't find the valuation right, I own it
tells a lot. And last thing, sir, जैसे हमने healthcare industry के साथ करा, मुझे अभी so earlier I was doing promoters only, जैसे मैंने बताया Asian Paints, Pidilite, but अभी मुझे सारी industry के बारे में समझना है.
Right.
So जैसे healthcare में मैं आपसे समझा.
Right.
Tell me a couple of other industries जो आपको लगता है जिस industries में जो सनराइज इंडस्ट्री है और उस इंडस्ट्री में किस आदमी से हमको सीखना. दिस इज माय पर्सनल क्वेश्चन.
या सनराइज इंडस्ट्री मेरे हिसाब से अगर मैं एनबीएफसी एमएफआई देखूं तो एक सनराइज इंडस्ट्री है.
या
एज आई टोल्ड यू. तो उसमें ये बंदा है दिगांत हरिया, DIGANT, दिगांत हरिया. आई थिंक ही इज पार्ट ऑफ अ फर्म कॉल्ड ग्रीन एज. राइट. सो इफ यू रीच आउट टू हिम ऑन लिंक्डइन और ट्विटर, इज देयर ऑन बोर्ड. ग्रीन एज.
ओके.
हाँ. तो he does very good job on the NBFC MFI space. He'll give you insights which you otherwise would not have thought of. The other sector...
industry and the best person. Best person.
Yeah. नहीं, but वो industry भी interesting होनी चाहिए ना at this point from an investing angle.
Yes. From investing angle और यार अब अगर आप 20 साल के, मैं 23 साल का, मुझे बहुत सारी चीजें सीखना है. And I'm figuring out things in life.
Yeah. आप कौशल से मिल सकते हो. कौशल मारू will explain to you about cement like no other person can.
Oh, and cement is. I met a couple of investors. I met Govind Parikh sir. He's he's Chennai based. He started with zero capital right now, 2,000 crores. And his second generation Chennai is just came from. He's bullish on cement.
Yeah. So
you're saying कि cement की cost अगर 30 साल में देखो 1% के अगर पे.
Correct.
लेकिन बाकी सारी चीजें देखोगे तो वो बढ़ रही है.
कितना बड़ा
तो infrastructure अभी होगा, spend होगा तो cement is a good bet.
So I agree with that logic. But Kaushal again will explain to you right from the limestone to the raw material to what is the moat in the limestone and the distribution. वो सब समझ आ पाएगा आपको. So Kaushal is actually good for both cement and autos. He's a guy passionate about autos. And he used to cover auto as a sector at DSP.
NBFC, सीमेंट ऑटोज और कौन सी सनराइज इंडस्ट्री जिनके बारे में अगर आप यंग होते तो आपको सीखना होता.
यार अगर आपको एडटेक पे बात करनी है, बट दिस हैज नथिंग टू डू विद स्टॉक मार्केट.
डजंट मैटर. I come from a family of teachers. I love edtech.
तो edtech
I hosted all the investors, all the big players from Byju's, from Topper, जो भी कंपनी है ना.
So then there is this guy called Ashwini Bajaj. He's based out of Kolkata.
I have heard about him.
Ashwini Bajaj. He runs this firm called Leveraged Growth.
Is he on YouTube by any chance?
He would. I would assume he would be.
He's an edtech guy.
He's an edtech entrepreneur.
What makes you think he is worth learning from?
He's doing a good work. I mean, इसने ना, I think he has now got the highest market share in CFA FRM in India.
Very interesting.
हाँ. And at one point जो बंदा था, the guy, so I also did my CFA and I did it from the guy who was earlier the market shareholder. So I know that guy was good, but this guy must have been really good to sort of overtake him. And I've heard good things about him. So when I go to hire people,
You go
if I see CFA, नहीं, I don't go to him, but if I see CFA, I ask them कहाँ से पढ़ा? Ashwini भैया. So everybody is like Ashwini भैया.
डेटा सेंटर पे मजा नहीं आता आपको?
डेटा सेंटर में नहीं है, मेरा कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है अभी. टू हॉट अ सेक्टर और मैं किसी से बात भी नहीं करता अभी उस बारे में. आई वांट द सेक्टर टू कूल ऑफ बिफोर आई जंप इनटू इट. आई थिंक इट्स टू सून. मैंने बोला ना, some of these themes when they come to the fore, they just get hyper priced.
Yeah. And I think data center at one point will become a commodity.
Exactly. So it gets hyper priced. So actually मुझे more interest अभी power में, if I ask me.
Oh my God, that's so true. I'll tell you. So I mentioned all Indian billionaires.
Right.
So one of the billionaires, Ram Shriram sir. Ram Shriram sir invested in Google when the Google was not even registered. So he's the founding board member. He's still the board member. He's mentor to Larry and Sergey. I hosted him, not published. I'll publish next year, I think. तो बोर्ड मेंबर से आप जब किसी कंपनी के मिल लो,
करेक्ट,
तो कोई एम्प्लॉय नहीं बना करता आपको मीटिंग के लिए.
करेक्ट.
मैं सारे वीपी से मिला और मुझे इंटरेस्टिंग चीज बताई थी कि यार अभी हम एनवीडिया पावर और चिप्स ही है.
करेक्ट.
पावर हमको मिल नहीं, हम 100% यूटिलाइजेशन पे चल रहे हैं. गूगल की बात कर रहा हूँ तो उस पे, लेकिन पावर हमारे को दिक्कत हो रही है. तो हम पावर कहाँ से ले रहे हैं? तो मैंने उनसे पूछा तो उन्होंने बोला आप मुझे बताओ कौन सी ऐसी इंडस्ट्री है जिसने पावर सप्लाई चेन सॉर्ट कर रखी है. गेस. कौन सी ऐसी न्यू एज इंडस्ट्री है जिसने अपनी पावर सप्लाई चेन सॉर्ट कर रखी है? Guess?
क्या था आंसर?
Guess?
I don't know.
Guess no. It's a new age thing.
Data centers.
Bitcoin mining.
Bitcoin.
Blockchain miners.
Blockchains. हाँ.
You know the Stargate project?
नहीं.
Stargate जिसमें $500 billion ये सब.
हाँ. Stargate.
Who's the company executing? It's Crusoe. Crusoe was a ब्लॉकचेन माइनर. तो फिर उन्होंने बताया कि यार हम तो ये अप्लाइड डिजिटल है, ये पहले ब्लॉकचेन में थी, अभी ये हमारे डेटा सेंटर को पावर दे रही है और ये क्रेजी, हम इससे क्रेजी बाय आउट कर रहे हैं. तो वो हालांकि ऐसे सोचना नहीं चाहिए. तो आई इन्वेस्टेड इन दैट कंपनी और उस मेरी पूरी यूएस की 4 महीने की पैसे वापस आ गए. बट आई एम होपिंग दैट दिस इज अप्लाइड डिजिटल इज द 2-3 कंपनीज दैट यू आर
पावर जनरेटर्स, डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स. सो जेनकोस भी देख रहे हैं, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में भी देख रहे हैं. बोथ साइड्स, बिकॉज देखो ये जो धंधा आएगा डेटा सेंटर से कारण पावर का है तो सबको मिलेगा. जेनकोस भी मिलेगा, ट्रांसमिटर्स डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स को भी मिलेगा. So we are trying to see what is the best value play there. That is where we are stuck at this point.
But you have not figured out one interesting player. Very interesting. But this will be a good
theme to play.
But मैं इस पे सर्च कर रहा था. इंडिया का जो पावर आप देखोगे कंजम्पशन ग्राफ है 6%, 5-6%, 4-5%. ऐसा क्यों है बॉस? यूएस में आप देखोगे, यूएस का लास्ट 10 साल का 0% ग्रोथ. अभी भी वो 4000
इंडस्ट्रीज चले गए ना भाई. तो
चाइना में 10 साल में थिंक ना हुआ.
एग्जैक्टली. सो दो चीजें हुई है ना. यूएस में हाउस होल्ड कंजम्पशन ऑफ पावर हैज गॉन अप, इंडस्ट्रियल कंजम्पशन ऑफ पावर हैज कम डाउन.
यस.
फैक्ट्रीज हैव शट.
यस.
राइट. चाइना में हाउस होल्ड कंजम्पशन भी बढ़ रहा है और ये भी बढ़ रहा है.
इंडिया में क्या होगा?
भी बढ़ रहा है. इंडिया में एज एट दिस पॉइंट इंडस्ट्रियल बढ़ना चाहिए बिकॉज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फुटप्रिंट इज इंप्रूविंग. एंड हाउस होल्ड तो इनकम के साथ बढ़ता है, वो तो डिस्पोजेबल इनकम वाली स्टोरी आ गई.
जो पावर प्लान आउट नहीं
हुआ है. सो पावर कंजम्पशन इज डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनेट टू डिस्क्रिशनरी कंजम्पशन. अगर मेरे पास पैसा होगा तो मैं एसी लगाऊंगा, नहीं होगा तो मैं पंखे से काम चला सकता हूँ. आई डोंट नीड एन एसी. राइट. तो वैसा कहानी है. तो आई थिंक इंडिया फ्यूचर, इफ यू बिलीव दैट आवर जीडीपी इज गोइंग टू रिकवर एंड वी गोइंग टू गो बैक टू दैट 10-12% nominal GDP growth, power will be a great sector to play it. Add to that the data center optionality.
Yeah. India is very interesting, but whatever you say, no, the opposite is also true. So हम सोचते हैं लोग, मेरे तो दिमाग में लगता है कि यार वो इतना गरीबी होते जा रहे हैं, अमीर. बट रिसेंटली एट दिस इंटरेक्शन विद अर्बन कंपनी का गाय, मैं ट्रैवल करके आया था, मैंने मसाज कराया था. He said like he's earning 1.5 lakhs and he's like a 25-year-old kid.
Correct.
And just by massaging, वो 3,000 रुपए लेता है, 2,000 रुपए की वो लेता है,
घंटे का
3 करता है. तो क्रेजी अमाउंट मने कराता है. So मैं आपको ज़्यादा परेशान नहीं करूँगा, मेरी तो लिस्ट ही खत्म नहीं होगी. बट
go for it. बोल.
Thanks a ton for sharing this, being so open. I learned a lot, I can't tell you. And hopefully हम 6-7 महीने बाद अगर आपको थोड़ा सा टाइम मिले तो एक दिन आप हमको और देना.